what's happening? Hi, what are you doing? It's Tuesday. It's, what is it? It's like the end of May. June gloom is upon us. A little early. I mean, it's actually, I mean, it's good. There was a fire not too far away, and now the gloom has come in and taken care of that, which is nice. Hello, I'm Jeff Gerstmann, your host for this week's edition of The Jeff Gerstmann Show. It's a podcast about video games and computer entertainment. And by that, I mean pornography. What? Oh, that means something else? Okay, all right, well, whatever. Okay, all right. I'll put my Novint Falcon away and we'll get on with things. How's it going? It's been an interesting week of not great news. I don't know, like interesting video game releases and some kind of sad news, or I guess around some stuff here. I am of course referring to the release of Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. I know. Grim tidings, to bring your way. Yes, they put out the new Yoshi video game, and we've been playing bits and pieces of it here and there around the house. My daughter played a little bit of it and then bailed and went right back to Tomodachi Life. I think she is just obsessed with Tomodachi Life at this point, and she's just like telling her little stories and making her characters do silly things, and they're having babies, and they're getting mad with each other and all this other stuff, and that's been fun. Yoshi the Mysterious Book is really interesting. Like, I wish it wasn't a Yoshi game because the egg stuff is kind of in this game, but like I don't know, they've improved upon the egg throwing stuff from all the way back in the day to Yoshi's Island or whatever. So it's not Yoshi's Island bad, I guess. But like they did a really interesting thing here where Yoshi is going into a book that has been messed up, I guess. And they named the book Mr. E. And I think that they should just did they not realize that scumbag pickup artist Mr. E wrote all those books years ago, and like it was like a big scumbag? It's a really weird thing for them to do. Maybe I'm the only one who remembers that, like, that piece of shit was like, God, that's just a fucking crazy thing. Anyway, the book is named Mr. E, and it's a real throwback to some dark days. But it's kind of meant to be a look at the different animals and creatures of this whatever storybook, or like whatever's going on. And so you'll get to a page that's about a flower, or about a spring animal or something, that bounces, and your job is to go in there and find all of these different ways to interact with it that will then fill out the pages of the book with statistics and information about what these creatures are capable of. And after you do enough of that, it'll say like, oh, we should name it. Do you want to name it, or do you want me to suggest a name? Because the game has names for all that stuff, but if you want to name them all stupid things, you can do that. You're finding 5 flowers along the way, and so you're there'll be stuff like, oh, there are spring monsters, like little frogs, or I don't know what they are, but the little springy guys, and when you bounce on them, it plays a musical note, and so it'll do stuff like, oh, one of the pages in the book will be if you go do re mi fa sol la ti do. And then there'll be another one for going backwards on it that'll, be a little bit harder to find if you're not sure what to look for. It'll play like a Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on one set of them. And so if you complete the song, you'll get up to the top and there's a flower up there to collect. But also it'll say, oh, look at that. You played a song on the things. That's crazy. And so it inspires you to kind of interact with the creatures in as many different ways as possible. Where like it'll be like a flower that you can like, oh, well, if I plant it in the ground here, it'll do this, and it'll make this area change into this, and that's an interesting interaction. And so you're hunting for these specific interactions over the course of the game, and I think it's like a really, really neat idea. Like I haven't played enough of it to say with certainty, but also it kind of gets a little old. They built in things to where like if you get stuck, you can like spend some currency to get a hint or whatever about like, oh, what might I be looking for? Because, some of these interactions are going to be relatively obscure. And so they're going to be, they may be a little difficult for some folks to find. And so it's good that they put that system in there, but it also sort of like that also kind of reveals maybe the game's downfall a little bit, is that it's twofold, right? There are things where you're prodding at it and thinking this should be a thing, and it's not. And there are things that you go, oh, that was a thing? Weird. Okay. And so your expectations about what the different interactions could be, sometimes those line up and you feel smart and you're surprised and yay. And sometimes you're like, no, this has to be a thing. Like, why would this other thing be here if it wasn't going to be a thing? And you obsess over a little thing that turns out to be nothing. And that is a little frustrating. Or can be. Usually if you just kind of like bail on that and just kind of like focus on finishing the level, get through it, and then go back in and figure out what you're missing, that ends up being sort of a better way to go. If you just are looking to make progress consistently. But it's a really neat idea. They had a neat idea and they executed it mostly well. And that's I don't know, for a Yoshi game, that's kind of all you can ask for. And yeah, for as much as my daughter was watching trailers of that game prior to its release and asking me, when are we getting it? When is it coming out? Are we going to buy it? What are we doing? I'm like, well, we don't. I mean, okay, they'll send it. It's a long story anyway. And then she played it for all of like 45 minutes, and then hasn't touched it since. So I don't know. Take what you will from that. From that end of the experience, I suppose. I've been playing a little bit of 007 First Light. I've not gotten too deep into it. I'm still like basically at the beginning of the game. And it's interesting, like hearing the game described as like I saw someone was describing it as like one part Hitman, one part Uncharted, and yeah, I mean they did not just make a new Hitman game, but like tech wise, it is definitely a bump up from Hitman. There are some things about it that you see in terms of just like the way James Bond moves and walks and the run button and some of those other little things that you go like, yeah, okay, I think I see a little bit of not necessarily like Hitman DNA, but like IO Interactive DNA, I suppose. Like they hit upon a really good setup with the most recent Hitman game, so it makes sense that they would maintain some aspects of that. Like the start of it is really good. They put you through some early kind of I mean, that's the whole story, right? Is, James Bond becoming James Bond or whatever. But like they do a good job of starting that out as like, oh, you're just a dude on a helicopter and shit goes bad. And now you've got like a lady in your ear trying to get you to do spy shit because the mission went so sideways that they're counting on you, a lowly airman, to kind of get the job done. And I think that's a really interesting setup for the early part of the game. It's funny, like it's James Bond is such a fucking weird character, like the origins of James Bond. When I think about the origins of James Bond, I think like, oh, we're telling like Cold War era stories, and these are like weird 50s era, 60s, he's a young man in the SAS, like you think about some kind of post-World War II thing or whatever, because the James Bond franchise has been around forever. But this is a game where very quickly you're encountering like biometrically locked guns and shit that you're just like, oh, okay, yeah. It's it is a modern day retelling, or not even a retelling. I guess they haven't really gotten into it, but like, you find like one of the first things you find when you get inside is like a fucking submachine gun. And you're like, I found a gun. It's got the serial numbers filed off and all this. And the lady in your ear goes like, Yeah, that's really cool. Those are discontinued and they're biometrically locked, and he just sets it back down and walks away. You're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, we have it's like fucking Metal Gear Solid 4 out here. So yeah, you know, it's you know, it's not. It is not the like swinging fucking martini fucking Roger Moore, Sean Connery, James Bond game, which obviously, you know, that's of course, right? But like it ends up being kind of a weird I don't know, like right off the bat, I think that's kind of my thing about it is like this kind of weird retelling, or this weird kind of re-originating of James Bond as a modern current figure, because Roger Moore, better or worse, Roger Moore is the James Bond that I grew up with. Like when the James Bond movies that were coming out when I was a kid, and when I first heard about James Bond, it was when Roger Moore was playing the role, and so like that's, you know, I think he did fine. But like when I think about James Bond, the first image that comes into my head is still somehow fucking Roger Moore, which is, I don't know, weird. It's Timothy Daltrey did a really good, you know, but yeah, so it's you know, it's got its stealth mechanics, it's got its cover system, you know, there's a kind of a dash to cover thing that they do, where if you're far away, like a little bit of distance from cover, you can tap the run button and he will just dash into cover quickly, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know, the intro to the game is a very guided experience. It's very much like it's mechanical, and Hitman was very mechanical, but Hitman was mechanical in like a clockwork kind of way. For this to be a story driven game where you're progressing through an environment, like there's a moment early on that I kind of got hung up on a little bit, because they've showed you like how to dash behind cover, but it's not always immediately clear how much cover is good cover, and will they see me if I go cover to cover. And so they have these sequences where there's just a bunch of fucking guys with flashlights and guns walking out, and they're just like standing there. And there's like 8 of them. And you're like, okay, well, clearly, I mean, you know, like they haven't shown me anything about how to fight in the game yet. There's been no tutorializing about fighting or anything of that nature. So clearly I'm not supposed to get behind a guy, which was like the first thing I did before that part. Is there's a guy who breaks off from the pack, and I'm like, oh, this is where they're going to show me how to snap a dude's neck. And I walk up behind him and nothing fucking happens. And I'm like, oh, and then he turns around and shoots me. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. I guess we get to go back to a checkpoint. Great. But the early cover stuff is funny because all those guys walk out there and they just fucking stop, because they're waiting for you to make your way along this kind of broken cover to get over to some grass. And there's no tutorial indication that says you need to go this way. Which there probably doesn't need to be, but it's kind of a silly thing of like, I sat there for a little while going like, are these guys going to turn around and walk away and then I follow them, or what the fuck? Because it was not like the cover didn't look like cover. It looks like terrain, which is, to the game's credit, it looks like realistic terrain and not like here's a low fucking wall for me to hide behind. Though then a couple minutes later, they literally have a fucking low wall for you to hide behind. And I sat there for a long time, just at some point going like, is one of these guys going to come down and shoot me? Because like, did they program something in to go like, dude, you've broken the fucking, you've broken kayfabe on stealth in this game. And we need to kill you and reset you back to the checkpoint, because it's dumb that these guys have stood here for 5 minutes, but they will just fucking stand there until you fucking move. It's really dumb. And so like that kind of mechanicalness, that Hitman's full of it, right? But Hitman makes its entire game around the idea of that mechanical nature. Like Hitman is you manipulating and turning those gears yourself and going like, okay, if I stick a wrench here and do this to the gears and do this, then they'll walk this way, and then I'll go over here and do this, and so like that sort of behavior I think is absolutely perfect for that game. Something like this here was a little like, yeah. Like this seems this it was an early moment of just like, these video games are still video games. They have not beaten that stuff yet. Anyway, I've been messing with it on PC. It looks really nice there and runs really well. Also, the PC version of the game maybe has one of the worst settings menus I've ever seen, where all of the settings are just listed and you have to push a button into them to get the setting to expand out so you can see what's selected. Is this set to Ultra? Is this set to DLAA? Is this set to what? It's like, okay, button into it and then it'll expand out and then now you see it. Like, okay, now let me back out of that and look at the next setting. Is this set how I want to set it? Like, they don't just show you, here are the current settings. It's like crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. Who would do that? There's nothing cinematic or exciting about it. It's terrible. It's terrible. They should change it. It's a dumb thing to fucking get hung up, but like, the settings menu is done poorly and they should completely rip it out and replace it one of these days. But I'm looking forward to spending more time with it for sure. Like, it's, I think it's, I don't know, like it's got a sufficiently cinematic feel to it out of the gate that you're like, okay, like I want to see more of this thing, for sure. So I will be spending some more time with that in the coming days. I also played some Vortica, which is on Steam now. Vortica, this is one of those games. I couldn't tell you how Vortica ended up on my Steam wish list. What moment I just went like, oh, Vortica, I need to know about this when it comes out. I couldn't tell you how long it's been there. Maybe I could. Maybe Steam shows that, but I got a message last night that Vortica was out, and I was like, what? What is this? Well, I put it on my wish list, so I should probably check it out. And it's cool. It's a top-down, kind of a dual joystick shooter sort of thing. But you're also getting melee weapons, and you can equip everything to everything. And so you are getting all of these different items, like a belt light that'll light up an area. You're getting crowbars and knives, as well as guns. And you can put anything on any button you want. If you find a mapping unit, which seems like something they give you in maybe the second-ish level or so, then you can pull up a map, and you can even assign that to any button. It's a weird interface, but I think it works pretty well. But it is a top-down, like you're exploring space stations, and it feels like a game. There's a separate roguelite mode that you can go into that is like, hey, we're throwing away the story here, and you can just go on these missions and do stuff, and get in there and just get items, get out, all that sort of stuff. But I'm playing through the more kind of story focused mode right now, which is not a heavy focus on story, but it feels like it's kind of feeding you missions in a logical order instead of just kind of dumping you into an environment and saying, go run these missions over and over again until you die. It's got a good feel to it. The dual joystick nature of it is, like the guns need to reload and stuff. So it's not just like you're dumping all the time. It has a very, Rad Jago says it looks nuclear throne-ish. Yeah, there is a mildly cartoonish look to the visuals, I guess I would say. It's that type of indie game. It's that type of indie game look. Indie game look number 12. It's not painterly. But yeah, no, it's a pretty neat game. Vortica, it's Vortica. Go give the trailer a look. It seems like it could be a neat one of those. I need to put some more time into it. Either way. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll get moving with the news. I've seen some stiff, boxy, unpleasing pairs of jeans in my day. That's why it's been so nice to get some jeans from The Perfect Jean. The Perfect Jean makes jeans that actually fit human bodies. They feel nice. They're made from wonderful materials. They got great, strong zippers. They're incredibly well-made pairs of jeans for just $79.99. That's, there's denim out there You get into the high-end crazy stuff. You could spend hundreds of dollars on a pair of pants that falls apart almost immediately. The Perfect Jean is doing it better. And that's been awesome. It's been nice to have a pair of jeans here. The weather's been all over the place. Some cool days, some warm days. Actually got to bust out some long pants. A Southern California rarity. But here we are. And I'm wearing a nice pair of stretchy, friendly, feel-good jeans from the Perfect Jean. I don't know how many times you've gone out there and, ordered jeans online and they show up and they're just terrible. There's a lot of bad pairs of jeans out there, especially online. The Perfect Jean is doing it a better way. You've got to check it out. It's Memorial Day weekend. They're having a sale. But also, now, with this, you can get extra money off. That's right. The reviews for the Perfect Jean are wonderful. It's not just that people like them. It's that they go back and they order more. They get their first pair from the Perfect Jean and go, oh, these are actually legit. I need to get my hands on some more of these. That's nice. Get 50% off now. You can get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at theperfectjean.nyc. Or, Google the Perfect Jean. And use code Jeff15 for 15% off. Yeah. Unreal Engine 6. Sorry. Woo. I don't know why. I don't I don't know why the mere mention of Unreal Engine 6 makes me fucking burst. They're going to make Unreal Engine 6. I mean, of course they were, but they went ahead and announced it over the weekend. Well, I guess they didn't so much announce it as they showed a trailer for Rocket League. The same Rocket League. They are going to overhaul it finally. This is something they've been threatening to do for a while. At one point, they said they were going to bring it into Unreal Engine 5. And then they showed it's not even a trailer. It's like a picture of the Rocket, the Rocket Arena. The Rocket League fucking stadium. And you can see every blade of grass. And then a car drives onto the field and it's really shiny. And people in that fucking French stadium went fucking bonkers. Actually, not so much. I don't know, the people in the stands were into it, but like the people doing commentary were like going, "What? What? Did you know? Oh my God! Did you know? I did not know that they were going to do this." It was like just fucking ridiculous. Anyway, it's real fucking stupid. It was bad. It was typical esports commentary, but applied to an announcement about a game. And it's always, I don't know, like it was just, you're just like, oh God, these people. I didn't know they were going to do this. Did you know? It's like 6 of them at the desk trying to like fake excitement about a thing and going like, which one of you knew ahead of time? Oh, I tried to get the information, but they wouldn't tell me. And there's like a man in a hat, like before the trailer airs, like a guy in a fucking suit with a hat comes in and he's like standing in this fucking, like this hexagon fucking tunnel. And you go, let's talk about the future of Rocket League. And it's just like, what the fuck are we doing? Anyway, and they showed this like very brief thing. And then they like, mock flipped out about it. And then that was that. The end of the trailer just shows the Unreal logo and then they draw a little 6 on it. And that's it. Oh, by the way, it's Unreal Engine 6. They have not really given any additional details about when that is happening or when the engine is getting this update or what it means for any other game developer or anything like that. It's funny, man. One of the things I find that makes for a good esports game, as an esports expert, but generally speaking, the games that seem to like really get their claws into a community and stay there for a really, really, really long time, are games that run on anything. Games with really low specs that can run on damn near any machine. And run well there so that people around the world can play the game no matter what. and you're getting more and more people into the game. That was the big Counter-Strike secret. When you ask the question, why does Valorant look like dog shit? That's why. Is because they wanted to keep the specs down. And so the idea of them saying now Rocket League is going to be the first game to ship on Unreal, which I guess they didn't say that, but that's the first game announced to be moving to Unreal Engine 6. That seems like a very fucking questionable fucking concept. So, yeah, I don't really quite know what to make of that, but I don't know. They're gonna do that, and that's really about it. It's been, what is it? It's been like 4-ish years since Unreal Engine 5. I feel like the Unreal Engine 5 has a bad rap, and I think that maybe only some of that is earned. It was earned in the early days for sure. Like the early days of UE5 felt rough. You know, the games that were meant to be some of the big early showpieces for UE5, you know, they rolled it into Fortnite and people were pissed because for some of the same reasons I was just talking about, because like the system requirements suddenly fucking went jacked up, and suddenly all these players were CPU bound, and Fortnite suddenly ran like shit. And they're like, what the fuck? You know, like they spent all this time talking about like, well, Nanite is going to do this, and we're going to, you know, like all of these features, and you look at it and go like, that's some really cool shit. But it feels like that the end result of that did not match their early ambitions when they talked about the engine rolling out, when they talked about Lumen, when they talked about all the stuff they were doing for UE5. Nowadays, I think, you know, like things are in a better place. Like, you know, people have gotten better. Like, they've updated the engine also. Like they, you know, it is a more optimized and better product than it was when UE5 originally shipped. So, you know, like they've certainly done work to improve the situation. But a lot of those early games, a lot of those early UE5 games, were kind of a mess. And yeah, that's you know, as Zorga points out, like Borderlands 4 was last year and had pretty shit performance. I don't know how much of the Borderlands 4 issue you can pin on UE5 though. I guess like that's, you know, there's always going to be a you know, developers have to develop it of the right way, a certain, they have to do some stuff to it, and maybe some of that was out of their hands. I don't really know. But like there have certainly been success stories on UE5 in the years since, but it still has, I think it has maintained a certain cloud over it, even as a lot of the issues have been ironed out over time and whatever. Like UE5 still, and that's why I say it gets sort of a bad rap, sort of an undeserved bad rap, because I think they have largely fixed a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. People were not thrilled by it, and you know, it ties into kind of this whole generation of consoles and how do these games perform, and how these, you know, I think there's been a lot of stuff about that. So I think that's why when they said, "Hey, we're moving to Unreal Engine 6," all I could do was laugh, because I'm like, yeah, let's get right back on this horse, man. I wonder what they will announce in terms of features, because, you know, for all we know, like ideally they say, hey, we're making Unreal Engine 6 and it's going to run on a lot more machines. It's going to run favorably on a much wider array of GPUs and CPUs, and, you know, we're really working on that front, because I don't know if you noticed, no one can fucking afford to go buy new graphics cards, let alone new CPUs, motherboards, RAM, all that, you know, like the upgrade pipeline is slowing. And so rolling out a new engine right around now, if their focus is going to be like, man, you can fucking see every blade of fucking grass and you're going to do this, and, well, you better buy some more, you know, like if that is the reality for Unreal Engine 6, like they are fucking walking into a brick wall. They're like, this is a terrible situation, you know. It's like, it feels like the worst time imaginable for there to be some kind of major tech iteration that ends up, you know, like requiring people to upgrade or something like that. So hopefully they are keeping that in mind as they develop this, and realizing that like GPUs are out of control, Like GPU pricing is out of control. Like a lot of pricing across the board for PC components, obviously console pricing, like just everything top to bottom is really fucking bananas. And it's not like it's, getting better. And so I'm very curious to see what they have to say about what Unreal Engine 6 is going to bring that Unreal Engine 5 did not. Because this feels like it could be a real just a real, I don't know, it feels like a real bad time for that, I guess. Even with new consoles theoretically around the corner, like that stuff seems like mildly up in the air, right? Sony said as much in their last earnings call. If you take that at face value, which you kind of have to do because they're not going to lie to their investors, they got out there and said like, yeah, as far as like timing and pricing and all this other stuff, like it's really, I don't know, the shit's real bad out there. We got to really think about it. And that seems to be the case. So yeah, I don't, like if major console launches are being rethought or at least like being done a little more carefully than they have been in generations past, new engine tech like this, if they're targeting the wrong end of the spectrum here, that seems like it could be fucking disastrous. Hey, maybe they'll come up with their own shader delivery technologies that will finally stop shader compilation in UE games for once and for all. Like everyone is working on one, right? Like Valve has had theirs for a while. Microsoft is pushing their advanced shader delivery stuff forward for PC games, and so like that stuff is getting a little bit better. I wonder if Unreal is going to go, we got one too. We also have a repository full of precompiled shaders that you can download from. Maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Someone will eventually get it right. Someone will eventually roll it out in dramatic fashion and fix that problem for PC players. But it hasn't quite happened yet. I don't really. There's not really a lot of other news. The other thing I'll say about the Rocket League stream is if you like dudes who look like they might say, "You do not want this smoke." If you like, and if you watch this podcast, you probably do. If you like pasty, pudgy white dudes looking tough, wearing fucking, soccer uniforms that have been repurposed to be esports uniforms, brother, let me tell you, the Rocket League esports stream might be for you. They got these guys walking through this tunnel and there's smoke and the guy walks out and he's just like, he's trying to fucking have his fucking, he's trying to mean mug the camera. He's trying to give you the best screw face he got. And you're just like, I don't, what do you you're here in France to play Rocket League. Stop it. Just fucking stop it. But if you like that, right around I think it's like the match that takes place like right after the trailer or whatever. I had to skip around because it was live. The event was live when I heard that the trailer was in there, so I went skipping around looking for it and happened upon these fucking dudes, and it was just like, oh man. It's great stuff. Less great stuff. Destiny 2 has reached an end. Bungie posted an update here. They say, hey, for almost 12 years, we've, Destiny, all this other stuff. It has become clear that after the final shape, we have reached the time for our shared worlds and Destiny to live beyond Destiny 2. As our focus turns towards a new beginning for Bungie, we will begin work incubating our next games. To that end, on June 9th, 2026, we will release the final live service content update for Destiny 2 to begin that new journey as a studio. Though active development may be concluding, we will ensure that Destiny 2 remains playable just as the original Destiny is today. Many changes in this final update will aim to ensure that Destiny 2 is a welcome place for players to return to. And they've got like a kind of a long set of, kind of patch note style stuff saying like, hey, here's the stuff that we are, here's the stuff that we are rolling into the game, to kind of put it into more of a maintenance mode style of thing. This feels like something that has been destined to happen for years now. Destiny 2 has not been on a great track. They have not been doing amazing numbers, or it has not been raking in the money the way they thought it would, and all of that other stuff. I think is accurate. For a while now. And as even with updates like the final shape coming out, like you look at that content and you go, okay, yeah, like this is cool, but like not in a way that's gonna like bring a mass of either new players or returning players back to the game. This is the thing that I've been talking about with Destiny 2 for a very long time. Is that Destiny 2 became increasingly unfriendly to returning players. With every update, I would try to get back into it because I have had some amazing times with Destiny 2. Destiny 2 on the whole is a really good game. That hit the skids pretty hard because they, and I think in a lot of ways it felt like they were really just targeting the players who were still with them, which is great, to super serve that audience. But that audience has not been big enough to sustain the game, I think for a while now. And it never really felt like, they did their big redesign of the main screen when you first get connected, of like, hey, we're going to point you at content and you should do this. Here's the things you should do. They tried to kind of at least point players in the right direction if they weren't sure what they should be doing next. I found that particular revamp to be incredibly underwhelming and not actually solve the problem. They had a couple of bad updates that the existing fan base didn't like, and that's going to drive people away from the game. They did their Star Wars thing that like had some neat ideas and a couple of interesting visual looks, but also had this weird, I don't know, like this desperate sort of feel to it. And so, it's been on this downward trajectory for quite some time. I would say years at this point. And so, like, it's been pretty obvious that eventually they would move on from Destiny 2. Destiny 2 was not in some position of strength where they were like, we're going to invest a ton of money into this to do a big expansion and do a big this or do a big that. It's like, no, they did that in all the expansions leading up to the final shape. Like they blew it a couple of times along the way there too, and so at some point you just don't keep investing money into that thing, period. Right? If you're Bungie, if you're Sony, if you're anybody with a, looking at the, the state of the game, I feel like externally, even without any real, insight into, without any major insight into the game. I mean, I feel like we've heard bits and pieces of like, oh, well, right after Sony bought it is when Bungie really started kind of, like the game really took a turn for the worse, and the numbers have been like weirdly down, and maybe not that weird because, if you look at the track record of updates, but like the game, the content was not good. And so if you're already on a smaller player base than you want to have, and you are putting out content that is getting those players to give up on the game, let alone getting new players through the door and trying to acquire new users and all of that stuff, like at some point that game's just going to stop. And that's what it's doing. I think it's really sad. And I think that's something that a lot of Bungie and ex-Bungie people out there have shared, some things like that. And because a lot of this gets chalked up to, if you believe what we've been hearing about things at Bungie for a while now, a lot of bad management, a lot of Pete Parsons telling you about how many cars he has, that type of stuff. They've gone through rounds and rounds of layoffs. And Destiny 2 was very famously a hard game to update, just a hard game, like they vaulted content. They took content out of they took good content out of the game, great onboarding content that if you wanted to like get someone new into Destiny 2, that's the content to do it with, man. They ripped that out of the game. And unfortunately, that's kind of one of the saddest things about this kind of maintenance mode, or the end of active development, is they're not able to put that content back into the game. It's not like they can unvault it and go like, here we go. Obviously, it would take a lot of work and probably a lot of money to do that. And this is not a game that they're looking to spend more money on. So that's that. It's unceremonious to a certain extent. And it's a fucking bummer. There's been some additional reporting around this out of Bloomberg, who reports that like some people were like, oh well, this is great, they're gonna work on Destiny. Like, no, Destiny 3 is not in development. There has not been some greenlit project from this reporting. There has not been some like, hey, we've got the next one coming or anything like that. By multiple accounts, it sounds like the studio is bracing for layoffs on the other end of this kind of maintenance mode rollout, which is, a couple weeks off here, because they will not need the number of people they currently have to make new content for Destiny 2 if they are not going to make any more Destiny content. And so this is going to reshape this studio again, a studio that's already been through a number of layoffs. Yeah, it sounds like that there are some pitches and some projects and people trying to put something together. It's like, hey, what if we should make this? We should make this. But nothing's gotten off the ground at this point. The studio will, it sounds like they're going to focus on Marathon, which Marathon Season 2 starts pretty soon here. By most accounts, it sounds like everyone on the development and publisher end of the Marathon thing is they are in, like they're gonna keep going on it, and they should. Like, that's like, Marathon's a fucking amazing game. It is fucking fantastic. It needs some things. And the interesting thing is when you read some of the Marathon patch notes and you read some of the recent stuff that Joe Ziegler said, he's the director of the game. He mentions a lot of experimental stuff, that there's stuff that they go like, okay, we're thinking about, some, like, they're thinking about ways to make that game slightly friendlier to players, which I think is probably smart. It's the problem that Destiny 2 eventually ran into, right? Eventually, Destiny 2 became something that was too much for a new player to get into and really get into in a major way. And Destiny 2, by its very nature, and Marathon is doing this right now with the Cryo Archive, with its kind of end game activity that they have right now. Like, they are building. It's It's a catch-22, man. It's a real fucked up situation, because when you go back and you look at the raids of Destiny 2, or there's Destiny as a whole, as a concept, you know, you go look at Vault of Glass, you go look at some of the other, you know, I think I did 3 raids over my time with Destiny. 2 or 3. 3, anyway. They do things in that game that other games don't do. They craft encounters and they craft experiences in ways that are incredibly deliberate, that are very high touch, that are wonderfully different than just about anything else going. Destiny's raids, which obviously, you know, they took cues from MMO raids of the past, and, you know, like, obviously, you know, World of Warcraft casts a bit of a shadow over that game. They built things that and got players that would never do that in an MMO. They got players to get in on that at a rate that is still impressive. But the statistic I would really like to know, and there's probably an achievement or something we can look at that would tell us something about it. What percentage of Destiny players do you think ever actually completed a raid in that game? Like, it's amazing content, and the bars you have to clear in order to even be able to access it, let alone be equipped and like dialed in enough to complete it, is too high of a bar. When your goal is to make a big mainstream, you know, you've got to keep people coming through the door to keep the lights on for your game. Bryn's got a quote here. I don't know where it's from, but it says 11 to 15% of all Destiny 2 accounts have ever completed a raid. Yeah. That's not a super high number, but that's still somehow higher than I thought it would be. And so they're making content that no one else is making. They're making a style of mission, a style of encounter, a style of boss fight that like no one else is really doing in shooters. And it's wonderful stuff. It's crazy. But you have to fucking spend so much fucking time to get to this thing that most people are never going to do it. And when you look at Marathon right now today, you see them kind of repeating that same process. Cryo Archive is the kind of end game content in Marathon right now. It's a it's a major operation. You're going in there with players, and you know you've got to clear 6 different vaults to get to the final boss, and you know, like, there's a lot of mechanical density to that stuff. It is in a lot of ways different from the rest of the game. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to the rest of the game. But like if you've played the rest of Marathon, you know, like, you're kind of getting in, doing your contracts, you're getting some stuff, you're getting out. Like, Cryo is in, and I'm not high enough level to even fucking run Cryo because a bunch of other games came out and I've not been able to play nearly as much Marathon as I wish I could. But like, having seen enough of Cryo Archive on various streams and talk to people about it, like, it's that same style of fucking amazing content that you simply do not see anywhere else. You know? It's a level of puzzle solving that is higher than, you know, like, they expect a lot of their players. And it's fucking awesome. So few games are willing to do that. And I think there's a good reason why so few games are willing to do that, is because they're trying to reach the widest possible audience and do all this other stuff. And so, like, that's the situation that Bungie is putting itself into again with Marathon in a different way. And so when you see the update from the director and he's talking about like, we want to experiment with different kind of PvE content or different kind of PvP. Like, you know, they want to have content in that game that fits whatever mood you happen to be in at the time. If you want something that's a little more laid back and lower stress, or if you want to go all the fucking way, they want to have something for you. And so I look at that and think about the base that they have with Marathon. It's new, it's exciting, it's fucking great. I think that they've got an opportunity to build off of that and keep that game special the way it kind of needs to be, but also find ways to just extend something of an olive branch to the rest of the world and go like, there's cool shit here for you too. And that's the hard balance. And I feel like that's the balance that got worse over time with Destiny. I feel like with Destiny 2, I would hear great things about the raids. I would in the dungeons and some of the other kind of like cool stuff that they were doing as like end game content, prestige content, whatever you want to call it. But like the mission to mission stuff, like I fucking had a strong dislike for just about everything I've played in Destiny 2 over the last, I mean, at least 2 years, but probably realistically like longer than that. Like that stuff's just, you know, like it kind of from a lore perspective, like disappears up its own ass in a way that if you're not constantly there with the game, I don't remember who these characters are. I played 40 games between this Destiny expansion and this Destiny expansion. You're just like, okay, yeah, I don't know. Fucking the Crow is, you know, like, I was just like, fuck, whatever, man. And they didn't do a great job with that stuff. I feel like the original lore of Destiny is like pretty straightforward in its own weird way. There's a ball in the sky. People think it's Jesus or whatever, and it stops talking to people. So now there's a guy who speaks for it. You're like, okay, sure. And somehow some of these people are immortal, and when they die, they come back. And also there were wizards on the moon. You know, like whatever, man. Destiny. Paul McCartney was there. So yeah, I don't know. I think they didn't do a great job of like kind of keeping people up with the lore during breaks in the game. They didn't do a great job of like pointing you at the new content. I had a couple of times where I loaded it up. There was new content out, and Destiny does a thing where when there's new content or you know, when they roll out a new expansion and you buy it or whatever, it drops you right into the first mission and you go. And you can still quit out of it and kind of do whatever, but like it you know, it tries to get you into the mission. So I went into the first mission. I think it was the first mission of the Star Wars stuff. And I got to the end of that mission, and there's these big walking tank thing, you know, like big kind of, it's the no respawn zone at the end of the mission, and there's big shit there. And I banged my head against that thing for like 45 minutes alone. A lot of times the game would match you in with other players for that kind of initial mission to make it seem bigger than it is. You're like, oh, we're all going to do this and all, you know. But this time I was all alone, just kind of doing this thing, and just kept dying over and over again. I felt like I just didn't have the right fucking items to take this thing on. Like I didn't have the right equipment or something. And so I did that for a while, and I was like, I've got other stuff to do with my life than this. And that was the last time I played Destiny 2. And yeah, I don't know. This whole thing is a fucking bummer, but it's not like a shock, I guess. It's surprising just because Destiny has been there for so long. 12 years. 12 years of their 10-year plan. They survived Activision. They survived the president of Activision apparently showing up at the studio with drawings his child had made of spaceships and said, like, you should put these in the game. They survived that. And so to go all the way through to the other end on this thing, again, like the writing I feel like has been on the wall for a long time. Like there's nothing about this that you go like, I can't believe they, but the game is so good. You know, like you look at it and go like, yeah, it's probably about time. It's probably about time for Destiny 2 development to wrap up. I wish that they were doing it from more of a position of strength. I want to see a Destiny. I still, in spite of everything I just said, I would be extremely interested in a Destiny 3. In a new game in the Destiny franchise that is not a mobile game. I would be very interested in that. I think you do a time jump. If I were writing Destiny 3, I would be like, hey, it's been like 200 years since the events of Destiny or whatever, and now even that stuff is now another weird legend pasted on top of the weird white ball in the sky shit. And you kind of, you know, a new generation of Guardians, a new, you know, like you kind of do something like that. Give it something of a reset. And it's all racing. There's no guns. It's all just fucking sparrow racing. But yeah, it's you know, like, and apparently they are, like I said, apparently they are, the reporting is that they are bracing for layoffs in the wake of this, which I think is, you know, like if they're not going to be making or maintaining a game as large as Destiny is with new content, then there's probably people at that studio, and also they're not rolling right into, you know, full production on a brand new thing. Then that studio is probably still somehow too large for what they're doing, I guess. I don't know. And it sounds like some Destiny 2 folks have rolled over onto Marathon, and so they are focused on that. I think there's, you know, again, Marathon is a very special game. It is special in, like, not in the way that Destiny was special. It is equally special in a completely different way, I guess, is what I would say. I think that the way they've pulled in the lore from these ancient fucking Macintosh games is beautiful. And they've made it accessible in a way. Like, it doesn't feel like you're like, well, I need to go back and play some fucking 90s fucking Mac. Like, no, you don't need to. They will reveal, they'll tell you what you need to know. But they've done a ton of fucking cool shit. They've done a lot of really cool things inside of Marathon since its release. And it's a game that, like, even though I'm not like playing it every single day anymore, like every single set of patch notes I read for it, I go like, oh, fuck yeah. Like every step they take seems like a step that is further in the right direction. They just have to make it through season 2. You know, like if you think about the development of a game and how long it takes and how development of post-release content often takes place before the release of the game, a lot of the stuff in season 2, like they've done great like pivots and experiments, and they're finding ways to kind of freshen up the game and do things that I bet were not initially on their you know, their roadmap or whatever. But I bet the bulk of season 2 is stuff that they thought they would do, you know, prior to the game's release. And so in some ways, season 3 probably ends up being the first one that is truly shaped by player feedback and the needs of that audience. And so I wonder how season 2 will end up faring. It sounds like they're doing like a nighttime version of one of the levels in season 1, which that sounds fine, but it is not a marquee like, oh, sick, you know, like that's not, you know, you want new content, not relit content. You know what I mean? There's been some, you know, like I guess the Marathon Steam reviews took a hit because a bunch of Destiny fans lashed out at it. Like, this is not Marathon's fucking fault. You know, this is, you know, like I said, I think there's a lot of this stuff you could lay at the feet of Bungie's management. And, you know, Destiny was a nice little business that I think if they had been smarter about how they updated it, I think that they would have been in a better place. And, you know, in some ways, the other piece of this is like Bungie is a studio that was purchased by Sony under a different regime. You know, there's something to be said. It's the frustrating thing about companies. The frustrating thing about corporations is that on top of it just being like, companies are, corporations are fucking soul crushing entities by design and everything else. You also have to deal with the individual humans and their own motivations and egos and all this other shit too. And so when you're the guy who says, I'm going to buy this company, you're the one who builds the case of, we've got to buy this studio. It's going to be a big, huge, it's part of our future. We're going to get out there and get into live service games, for example. And this is one of the studios we need to get. And they are the marquee premier studio in the world for doing this. And we're going to give them billions of dollars. Right as their game, right as their bread and butter is turning the corner. Right at the time when Destiny 2 is like, I don't know, is like a pretty wild piece of timing. But the thing it does is it puts that person on the hook to desperately try to make that acquisition succeed. And now Jim Ryan's not there anymore. And so you have a regime change at the top of Sony. Herman Hulst is still there. Doing his thing, obviously, but like, and so I'm sure a lot of this, like, these live servers, this and that, I'm sure a lot of that just gets pinned on. I bet Jim Ryan is a very easy scapegoat for a lot of problems that touched a lot of people that are not just Jim Ryan. When I think about how these things typically work, that's not insider information. I am kind of speculating a little bit here, but you do have a situation here where now the guy who would have been probably one of the main people who would probably want that acquisition to succeed is now long gone. And so that's a little less protection for Bungie, a studio that already didn't have a ton of it because they were external and they were kept separate instead of rolling into the entire kind of Sony Studios umbrella or whatever. Like they were kept allowed to be independent and whatever else, and there's it's kind of some weird stuff around that stuff sometimes. But yeah, speaking as someone who threatened to quit a company not long after it was acquired, you get a very keen view into how far some of those people are willing to go. The people who said, yes, let's spend the money to buy that thing. You get a very keen sense of how desperate they can be to not look like, oh shit, I was the one who said we could buy this website and then all the fucking people quit because we fucked them on their contract. So yeah. So, like that's now Bungie is kind of in a situation where I think they don't have that level of protection and everyone's just trying to figure out, like, what do we do going forward? And I think Marathon is a really good thing to rally around. At least you can look at it and go, like, this game is of a high quality. Like, we're not rallying around shit here. We're not, like, taking garbage and trying to prop it up. It's like, here's a really fucking good game. The people that play it fucking love it. How do we get more people to play it? Has that ship sailed? What do we got to do? And hopefully they get the opportunities to do that, because I think that game and the players of that game, I think, deserve it. But it looks like for now, Bungie is going to be solely focused on Marathon, and we'll see. Assuming these layoffs are in fact legit and they do take place, which I assume they would be. Why wouldn't they be? Then we'll kind of see what that looks like, if they have the resources they need to succeed. Either way, I'm really, again, like, as much as it's not a huge surprise, I am very sad to hear about the end of Destiny 2. Destiny was a special thing in a lot of ways. Destiny is a game that is kind of on the same road of, like, online multiplayer games as like Phantasy Star Online. Like there's not like a direct lineage. It's not like, oh, this is the spiritual, you know, it's not like they sat down and said, we want to make one of those, but there's a Destiny did things differently because they made the game in a much more modern time than Sega made Phantasy Star Online for the Dreamcast. But they made a lot of really interesting choices right off the bat. Structurally, that I think set them up for making something really, really awesome. And Destiny at its best was really, really awesome. Also, Destiny 1 was a game that launched with not nearly enough content. Remember when that beta came out? The demo came out for Destiny pre-release, and then like, I don't know if this was something that was like talked about publicly a lot, but I remember playing through that demo and the word going around of like, by the way, that demo is like a lot of the fucking game. That demo is like a fucking like way bigger chunk of Destiny 1 than you think it is. And going like, wait, what? And so right out of the gate, you know, right out of the gate, they had that issue. And some of it was just like, okay, well, players are not ready for this type of online update thing. And, you know, the raid was not there on day one. And then, you know, they had a really good expansion after that, but like that took time. And so like Destiny 1 was kind of a fucking shaky launch, you know? But they pulled it off, you know, they pulled it off, and they pulled it off a lot longer than I think a lot of other games would have done. And when you think about the turmoil and weird shit they went through structurally from, you know, this deal they had with Activision to, you know, getting out of that deal, but also like all of the details of that deal leaking out in the Infinity Ward lawsuit. Like all of that stuff is super crazy. And then them getting acquired by Sony here, you know, in relatively recent days. From being the fucking studio that made Halo that Microsoft bought and then let go independent. The Bungie story is fucking unlike any other studio in history. Like the twists and turns of that company went through, from the days of making Myth and, you know, like just making Mac games and all of the other stuff that Halo was originally going to, you know, like, and then getting acquired by Microsoft, and suddenly it's the biggest thing in the world as far as Microsoft is concerned. And it became one of the biggest franchises in the world, you know? And as much as I think 343 gets a little bit of a bad rap sometimes, when Bungie moved on to other stuff, it was never the same, you know? Bungie's probably a hard studio to maintain, you know? It's probably pretty expensive all through the years, right? But we'll see where things go from here. I would love to, you know, and at this point it would fundamentally be a different thing because it would be probably completely different people by the time anything got greenlit and put together and whatever else. Like, who knows what Bungie would be? Who knows what, you know, what Sony's appetite for it would be? But I hope at some point that we do see another Destiny game. I don't know that I am holding out extremely high. I don't know that that'll happen. In fact, if I had to guess, I would probably guess like, probably not. But you give it some years, give it some time. I could see someone coming along and going like, dude, we made too much money. We built too much brand equity around the name Destiny to not make a fucking another one of these. Right now is probably not the right time. If you look at the Destiny 2 updates and some of the things they've done with that game for the last couple of years. Like, you might not want them to roll right on to Destiny 3 right now, because they've not exactly been hitting home runs with Destiny 2. But I think with some time away from it, I wouldn't mind. I would love to see another game like this. So we'll see. This industry has a kind of a gross habit of dredging things up years after that seems sensible to do so, and going like, this is back. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we got, 3-4 years down the line and someone said, hey, it's time. It's time to do this. But I'm not exactly going to be holding my breath. Man. You should check out Marathon. It's fucking really good. It's fucking really good, dude. Infinity Ward has new studio heads. Mark Grigsby and Jack O'Hara are co-studio heads of IW now. And they're not necessarily talking about the game, but they kind of did an interview. Like, it seems like Activision or somebody, or they wanted to get the word out that, like, hey, Infinity Ward is on some shit. It feels like that's the attitude they want to. And we've got new studio heads. And so it feels like that's been something that there was like a very short interview that showed up on IGN. And the Infinity Ward social media has tweeted some stuff out here that, again, doesn't really get into the game here. It's more just like setting the table for the studio, which is sort of a weird thing. But okay, here's what they wrote. We are Infinity Ward. We build visceral, like right out of the gate, visceral, immersive, 2 for 2, combat experiences that hit different. As a new chapter begins for this studio, we're focused on what defines us. Passion, precision, obsession, and an unrelenting drive to make the best entertainment in the industry. Our next game is the result of that mindset. Determined, bold, relentless, built by a team pushing every detail, every system, every moment to its limit. On behalf of everyone at IW, we're proud of what we've been building and excited to finally start sharing it with you. Mark and Jack, studio heads, IW. And then, according to videogameschronicle.com, they then did get out on another social media post and say that what they are making is, the quote, the definitive Modern Warfare game. So, we've heard that this game is going to be Modern Warfare 4 for a long time. Maybe it won't be called that. That's been some of the talk on it. But we don't know that for sure. But it is a game that is going to be set in some form of the Modern Warfare universe. To me, this says that they want you to care about the new Call of Duty because they know that the last one did not get the job done. And I think this is probably a smart move to at least try to, this isn't necessarily distancing themselves from last year's game, but it is trying to, again, set the stage of, we've got new studio heads. We are fucking really pushing on this thing, and we are looking to make the fucking best one of these we can make. That is kind of the attitude that studio seemed to have in 2019 or whatever, when the Modern Warfare reboot was in development. And the interesting thing about that game is how many of the different systems and different things that they touched, things that would go, lightly touched for years, were suddenly getting, really great overhauls. Audio, I think, is kind of one of the undersung ones of those, but in a world where Battlefield was often cited as having really great audio and Call of Duty just didn't, they really overhauled their audio and took huge steps in the right direction there. They had a great year of multiplayer that year. They had some interesting ideas around kind of third mode type stuff. The campaign itself was engaging in a way that the series hadn't been for a few years prior. You know, Black Ops 3 and 4 were, you know, as much as people like zombies in 3 and everything there, like the campaigns were basically non-existent. And, you know, like you had this other, or one of them had, you know, no campaign. The other one was the whole frozen forest thing. Like Black Ops really kind of got out there a little too far, and the games started suffering. They wanted to be a hero shooter. They started putting characters with special abilities and ults in it and stuff. And I think it was, in a lot of ways, that stretch is like the darkest period the franchise has ever seen. That period from, I guess, like Ghosts to Black Ops 4, probably, right? There's like stuff, well, I guess like Advanced Warfare is really good. The campaign in Infinite Warfare is really good, but the multiplayer was like kind of fucking fucked. And so there's bright points for sure along the way there, but like that felt like a period of decline for the franchise overall. It feels like they're kind of in that same boat again. I would say it's too soon for them to be back in that boat again, considering they already kind of pulled the ripcord on a reboot, and they can't exactly do that again. But you know, between Black Ops 7 and Modern Warfare 3 being these games that felt very tacked on to the previous year's game, to the point where the talk was one of them was just going to be paid DLC. They need a hit, you know, like they need to right the ship. And that is something that Infinity Ward did last time that they needed it. They fucking nailed it. And so I'm very interested to see what this ends up being. I think they're in a weirder and different hole than they were last time out, because I feel like there's a certain fatigue on this that is not, that you're not going to get away from. I'm very curious to see what they end up doing, and yeah, presumably they're going to announce that game soon. And, you know, they wouldn't be doing these types of interviews if they were not going to be a significant part of the Xbox showcase. So I expect that that's going to be, you know, something there for sure. And maybe they will announce it before, as you know. I mean, yeah, Video Games Chronicle speculates that, hey, maybe the game will debut during Game 1 of the NBA Finals, because they've certainly done that before. Like, that has been where they've shown their first commercial or stuff like that. So, you know, it's entirely possible that they do something like that again. I think that, you know, yeah, someone mentioned in chat that, you know, like being tied to Warzone maybe is kind of a not a sustainable sort of path. And yeah, there is something to the idea that, like, you know, having to tie into Warzone every year kind of limits what they can do. And I wonder what ends up happening there. Warzone is still probably too big for them to just kind of throw away and to go like, oh, well, that game's going to be over there now and our new game's not going to really tie into it, or like, hey, we're going to put these characters in the game and you'll have some kind of shared progress, but it's really not the same. Which I guess Warzone needs to be its own thing. Warzone needs to just be its own battle royale game. And if you buy the premium Call of Duty thing, you get a bunch of content in the free-to-play game. And you know, which is sort of how it is, but also it still ends up being tied to every year of the game in a way that I think doesn't necessarily, it probably doesn't help Warzone to have that cadence either, if I had to guess. I think some of those go back to the roots of Warzone. You know, I've said it before, but, you know, hearing about the early days of Warzone, the talk was that Bobby Kotick always thought of Warzone as a demo. You know, like in order for him to be sold on it being a free-to-play thing, that they had to say like, oh yeah, this is going to be the free thing that gets people to go buy the real game. When, you know, with the popularity of Battle Royale at the time being what it was, that the pitch should have been like, hey, we need to make this free to play because we can fucking monetize the shit out of it and we can do this and sell this and do this. But as a result, it started out directly tied, and it wasn't, free to play there for a bit, right? It started out directly tied to that year's Call of Duty. I guess it was the Blackout, right? But when they moved to Warzone, that's when they made it free to play and did that stuff there. Either way, the game will not be on Game Pass. So there's that. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where this goes. I don't really, the other little bit of information that we know about it directly from the source is that they said it is not being developed for previous generation consoles, which would be the first one of these in a very long time that has not been. Which I wonder then if that has another kind of implication on what happens with Warzone, right? I mean, they probably want that game to be. They probably want to keep making money off of PS4 players who want to play Warzone there, right? I would assume. Sega's re-teasing the Crazy Taxi game that they've been working on. This is something else that VideoGamesChronicle.com picked up on. There was a social media post with a little picture of a taxi in it last week. Nothing major, but it seems to indicate that we will probably hear more about Crazy Taxi in the very near future, considering Summer Game Fest is about a week and a half out now. I assume that we will see something there. The game was originally announced and confirmed as part of the Game Awards back in 2023. Seems like a very long time to be making a new Crazy Taxi. I can't believe they're making a new Crazy Taxi. It seems like an insane idea, but I hope that is just me being a little small-minded about what Crazy Taxi can be. Because Crazy Taxi, to me, is a perfect example of a game from an era when companies were still trying to figure out how to bring arcade games home. And Crazy Taxi is cool. Is Crazy Taxi, as that arcade game, is Crazy Taxi something that you're going to pay full price for? I don't know. That doesn't immediately sound like a great plan. And so I look at it as an opportunity for them to make a game that is much larger, but then is that fun? Is that Crazy Taxi? Do they get too far away from what Crazy Taxi is? And maybe it would be weird for this game to be in development for this long, but maybe this game is a small arcade focused thing and it will not be a full price game, right? I mean, we don't know right now, but it seemed like the indication around some of these games that they were making between this and Jet Set and, whatever they do with Streets of Rage, like the way that they announced this stuff had the feel of we're going big on these franchises. You know what I mean? And maybe that's off base, but it's still a really weird. I don't really know how you build a whole game. Like Crazy Taxi is a thing that I like playing for about 45 minutes and then like, yeah, cool. And then coming back to it a while later. Oh, a long while. I mean, these days, a very long while. But like yeah, I don't know. That's just such a weird. It's a weird thing to bring back. It's a weird thing to bring back. But I really want to see what they're going to do with it. Because I do think that there is something there. There's certainly something there to kind of to bring that is worth bringing back. I am probably I don't know, man. I don't like the Offspring enough to for that to be like a thing that like I see multiple people in the chat go, well, if they bring back Offspring for it, like no, like Offspring kind of sucks, dude. It was a great time. It was a great time for that Offspring song to be in that exact game. It was a great era for that. But like, if you're telling me, hey man, we're putting this game out, and yeah, we're putting this like back in it, like, I don't know. But I think you can't get away from it. I think there's probably no way for them to, like, if I were a betting man, I would absolutely say yes, that song appears in that game, right? You know, I think you can't get away from it at this point. But ugh. Giant Skull, the studio started by Stig Asmussen, kind of post his time at Respawn. They had announced that they were working on a Dungeons and Dragons game. Hasbro has announced now, or I guess Bloomberg has reported that game is no more. That game has been canned. No real reason. There's the quote that Wizards of the Coast gave is, we decided not to pursue an early concept from Giant Skull. We have great respect for Stig Asmussen and his team and value our ongoing relationship. And then Asmussen gave a quote that also said things are good, and that they're still talking to Wizards of the Coast as well as other potential publishing partners. So this is not something that is shutting down the studio. And so it sounds like that they are going to be out there pitching something around, maybe not this game, but maybe something else, but that they have chosen to not go forward with that game. People seemed very excited about it at the time of announcement. Stig has had his name on some really wonderful action games over the years, and so he's got quite a reputation for himself, and be interesting to see what that studio eventually pulls up with. I don't know what to make of this. Like, it's the sort of thing where, like, Dungeons and Dragons is like pop. I mean, it's still, it feels like D&D is kind of gets into the conversation a lot more these days than it did maybe 5 years ago or whatever. And so it feels like it would be a good time for them to have a really solid Dungeons and Dragons game. Yeah, I don't know. That's sort of a weird move, but it could be something as like maybe that game was just not coming together. Like it could be something as simple as that, and there might not be anything else kind of crazy to get into or scuttle butt or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of the long and the short of that. Let's take one more break. We'll come back and maybe we'll get into some emails after this. Hey, you probably need a bed. You probably need a new bed. I feel like, some rough science here. Everyone could use a new bed. No one is getting a new bed often enough. But it's, getting a new bed's a hassle. What are you gonna, lay on, go to some mattress store and get high pressure sales tacticked by some maniac? No, you're going to get a mattress online. I've gotten some mattresses online, and let me tell you, I've gotten some bad mattresses online. But yes, you can get some good mattresses online, like Lisa. Lisa has a lineup of beautifully crafted mattresses tailored to how you sleep. Each mattress is designed with specific sleep positions and feel preferences in mind. So if you're a side sleeper, they got different sizes, different weight limits, all that other stuff, depending on what you're looking for. And from night one, you will feel the difference. They use premium materials that deliver serious comfort and full body support no matter how you sleep. They've got a sleep quiz. You just go fill out the form on their website and go like, I sleep like this, and then I sleep like this, but I like this, and I'm this. And then they go, you should probably get this. I went through that process. They sent me a mattress, and it's badass. This is not just about sleep, though. They're about impact. They work with local nonprofits across the U.S. to donate thousands of mattresses each year to families in need, with over 43,000 mattresses donated to date. Go to Leesa.com to get 30% off select mattresses, plus get an extra $50 off with the promo code Jeff, exclusive for you. That's Leesa.com, promo code Jeff for 30% off select mattresses, plus an extra $50 off. Support the show. Let them know we sent you. Leesa.com, promo code Jeff. I suppose maybe a last bit of news here. One Pat Bear pointed out that there was someone on Twitter noticed that Destruction All-Stars has been delisted from the PlayStation Store, and that the multiplayer servers have been shut down. There's a photo of the Destruction All-Stars news page on the PlayStation itself. Multiplayer services for Destruction All-Stars have been taken offline. Destruction points have been removed from sale on the PlayStation Store and can be redeemed until the 25th of November 2026. Arcade mode remains accessible for returning players. It's always weird when companies just kind of pull the plug on a thing with zero fanfare, but I guess maybe there's no winning on that. Because if you announce you're going to do it, then you get 2 hits of people being bummed about it, even though the game was not good in the first place and all that other stuff. And if you just kind of go hey man, no one's playing this game, barely anyone's going to notice anyway. So let's just do this. Destruction All-Stars was not a great game. It was one of those early PlayStation 5 games that you're this is... Huh. Okay. Yeah. It's funny, man, that this game happened and we still are in this weird limbo with Twisted Metal and but Destruction All-Stars went through a phase of they were trying to sell it for full price and it was just not a game, not a good car combat kind of experience. And so yes, now Sony has pulled the plug on it. So that's that. The surprising thing I think here is that maybe that it was still running. I think, weird. That'll do it for the news. Let's get into some emails here. podcast@guard.bike is the email address. You send an email to me. If it is cool, I will read it on the show. VGuy1 with the question that's on everyone's lips. How long until Foam Stars is gone? Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes my son still launches Foam Stars and just walks around the lobby shooting foam. He has not figured out how to get into a game, and I think that's fine because I don't necessarily want him playing multiplayer games. Anyway, but he occasionally launches Foam Stars. I'm pretty sure Foam Stars is maybe that's all you can do. Maybe all you can do is get in the lobby. I don't know, but I believe Foam Stars is still up and running. The question here is X Defiant still up? No, X Defiant was X Defiant is offline. Let's see here. Zep writes in and says, I'm completely devastated by the news that Bungie is ending live updates for Destiny 2. Since the final shape, I took a more relaxed approach with the game and only tuned in when new story beats would come out, and to date I haven't played the game since finishing the Renegades campaign 5 months or so ago. I think one of the most disappointing things about this situation is that last August they started a new narrative saga with Edge of Fate bringing an overall different feel to the game. It was a very character-centric approach that looked like it was going in a direction that was very new and fresh for Destiny. Now we're left wondering what that was going to be. with new characters like Lodi and Bale. Lodi. Sick boy. All the Raven's flock is all here. What hurts more is if we were to get another game of the Destiny franchise, I find it hard to believe that they would pick up where they would left off and would opt for something like a prequel or something far forward in the future of the timeline, which makes sense, but leaves us narrative and lore sickos a bit empty. If I knew how this is how it was going to pan out, I would have rather they ended service after the final shape rather than teasing us all with a good time. My heart breaks for the developers, community, and narrative team. They deserved much better than this. Yeah, I had not really heard any discussion of what story stuff they were trying to get off the ground or what they did kind of after the final shape story-wise. I did play some of the stuff with, I guess, Lodi, and thought he seemed real shitty. I don't know. It's definitely just like, what the fuck is this? That was the one where they made you roll into a ball all the time, right? That was the one where they gave you the Metroid ball ability and had you roll through tunnels. I don't know. Yeah. Let's see here. Next email from Mike in Vienna. I let my 8-year-old son try Roblox for 3 weeks. It was awful, and I have now banned it from my house using a network-level block. In my opinion, the game loop is downright evil. Most halfway decent games make you feel like if I improve my skills, I'll get rewarded. So you try, fail, try again, succeed, feel good. Roblox is the only game I've ever played that actively hijacks this dynamic and makes you feel like the only way to succeed is to buy Robux. It's almost clinically designed to make you feel like shit about yourself. The worst part is my son kept remarking that he doesn't actually like the game, but felt compelled to play because all his friends are on it. Anyway, I've told him he can't play anymore. Obviously, he's mad at me for ruining his good time, but honestly, this is the one time I'm putting my foot down on a thing. I'd rather him and his buds play Fortnite than this garbage. Well, let's not. Yeah. Yes. Roblox is, I think from a wide variety of angles, right? A lot of the time we only really hear about the predator angle of this, which is, I don't want to sweep that under the rug. That's obviously a fucking major problem as well. As much as they try to, change up who can talk to who in chat and the moves they've tried to make there. That has classically been a problem with that product. For me, it is the games themselves, the way things are designed inside of Roblox, and the way things are monetized inside of Roblox are really scummy. I don't know what limits Roblox puts on the people that create games in Roblox when it comes to how and when they monetize. But there's a lot of forced pop-ups because you walked on a certain square on the ground and then it pops up a thing saying, oh, do you want double luck for the whole server? Then you need to give us 329 Robux. And the number of different, and some games are better or worse about that specific thing. Like some games don't pop things up as much as possible. There will be games where you are upgrading, say, a brain rot. And if you click the button one too many times because you don't have enough money to pay for that upgrade, it'll pop up and go do you want to buy some money? You can click this button and you can spend some Robux to, add some Robux to your account. Why don't you do that? And every time you misclick, it feels like it's popping something up in your face. The UI in some games is laden with ads for you spending money inside the game. You get a bonus guy over here, you get an overpowered character if you give us 29 of these, or open all your packs of cards now for 149 Robux. And there's so many different offers being thrown at you on a constant basis. And the design of a lot of these games is just a fucking endless treadmill. And so by design, any money you spend in any of these games is just being thrown away. because you'll always find something better half an hour or an hour later, because that's the nature of the game. And then if you do get to the top of the content and there are no more, say, brain rots for you to collect, wait a week. And they'll go, we've added a whole new tier of brain rots for you to collect now. And so it's like a bunch of idle games, a bunch of incremental games, which that's not everything that's in Roblox, but most of the time I've spent in there has been looking at stuff like that. It's a series of incremental games that are constantly trying to get you to spend money. And they are constantly developing and designing themselves in ways that optimize that process of like, how do we get these people to spend money? There was a game that I was playing like a fair amount of in Roblox as I've kind of been on this journey of like, what the fuck is this thing? And now that I know, I probably need to just like stop, but I'm still like fucking around with a couple of things in there. But one of the games that I had spent quite a lot of time with, what's it called? It's called Kick. No, it's not Kick. It's Be a Lucky Block, and it's another fucking brain rock game. But it's like an idle incremental game where you're kind of like leveling up your guys and you're getting more money from them, and then you use that money so that you can be stronger, so that you can get better stuff, so that, you know, and it's, you know, in a lot of ways a classic incremental game. Over time, you know, I started reading the documents. I talked about this not that long ago, but as I started reading the documents about how people make money off of Roblox games and seeing like, oh, you get money if you're the first thing that a person plays, if they play your game for 10 minutes. And then I started noticing as soon as I saw that, how many different games had like timers and little things in there that were like, oh, every 5 minutes you're going to get an item, and at 10 minutes you get a really good one. Like they're really trying to optimize to get you to stay for 10 minutes. The game I was playing was, you know, you can't steal brain rots from other players, and you just kind of build up your stuff and you know, like you build it all up. And over the last couple of weeks, I've watched that game steal mechanics from another game that is more popular, a game called Kick a Lucky Block. And you see whole cloth mechanics just come right into this other game, and they go like, oh, hey, we reworked the speed system in favor of this thing where you got to lift weights, and now this other stuff, and lifting weights takes time, so you better sit here for 10 minutes or more and watch this guy just pump iron. And then they introduced something where you can apparently now steal brain rots from other players, which that was not there before. And alongside that, they've introduced something where if you give them, I believe it is 600 Robux a month or week or something, like, yeah, you can prevent people from stealing your brain rots. You put a big stop sign, a big no stealing sign on your base. If you pay them, if you pay them their protection money. So it's just a straight up fucking shakedown. After like months of the game not having those mechanics, to then introduce like, oh, by the way, all your shit can get stole, is fucking crazy. And so top to bottom, you have these games that could disappear in a fucking heartbeat. Like the creator of a game could go like, oh, I'm done with this one and it's not making enough money anyway, so I'm going to make it private. And if you spent money in that game, fuck you. It's just gone. That game's gone. Your benefits don't transfer over to some other game. It's not like I bought this, you know. And so it just becomes like the longer you stare at it, the more insidious it reveals itself to be. And it feels unregulated in a way that is crazy to me. I feel like even Roblox as a company should be probably better at coming to these games and saying, hey, don't do that. Or, hey, you know, like we've built some best practices. This feels like worst practices. This feels like they sat down and said, hey, man, let's take it all the way back to the darkest days of mobile game development. Fucking iPhone 3G era fucking crazy shit. And maybe it's more like iPhone 4, iPhone 5. but like it's before, like, the mobile industry learned a lot, and the mobile industry has optimized in ways that is, that has made those games make money, but they've also optimized in ways that make the games less fucking filthy and in your face about it. You could argue that that's worse if you want. But these games are constantly like, boom, want this, want this, want this. And now imagine you're a kid who's got friends that, like, I'm going to stunt on my friend by buying a really fucking good brain rot. And then you buy it, and then like 5 minutes later, you find a better one for free. And you're like, oh, fucking great. Every step of the fucking way is some fucking insidious fucking trap. And the social nature of it makes it fucking worse. Most of these games are fucking slot machines built on top of other slot machines, built on top of another slot machine, where it's like, okay, I'm going to fucking roll this random thing, and then depending on how much I've played the game, I've built up a luck number that is going to influence what I'm going to get out of that, so it'll be a higher tier of thing than I would get otherwise. But then also, there's another random thing where it could be a higher tier of creature that gets me even more money that way, so it's like a gold version of it or whatever. And so it's like you're opening fucking trading card packs, and all of it's fucking garbage because the whole thing is built on a fucking mountain of shit. It's fucking terrifying. When you see like the active player counts, I know I freaked out about the fucking this shit about a month ago, but like it is still fucking bananas to me, the number of active users you see on some of these games, and you see what the games are, and you're just like, this shit is fucking terrible. But I guess if you're there and you're voice chatting with a friend and you're doing your then I see why you might stick with it. I see why it might become your everything. And that's not I'm not trying to be all high horse about like some aspects of this stuff, but like I'm not trying to be all high horse about it, like the video game industry needs to do, but instead it's more like this shit is fucking low quality and throwaway. And it's like there's something kind of interesting about that, because if you want to play a bunch of fucking like very low rent incremental games, there's a billion of them. And you look at it and you see how each one is built, and you see like, oh, they also have this thing this other game has, and you see these design concepts like infect other games, like almost like, oh, this was really effective for these guys when it came to like monetizing or do this, I'm going to put that in my game. And so you see these things just kind of like, you see clones of games pop up, you see like all this other shit, and it's just like, it's really fucking wild to see like the way that stuff takes shape, like the ecosystem and the way ideas traverse from game to game to game, especially largely in the name of monetization. I think that stuff is really like scary, and it's just wild to fucking look at, man. It's really nuts. So yeah, I don't know, like, eventually, I imagine one of my kids is going to hear something about Roblox at school, and I'm going to have to fucking do something about it, but I am not planning. I feel like I have now spent enough time with it to have a good understanding of what it is, so then when it tries to come in my home, I can fucking stop it. We'll see. An anonymous email asking the hottest questions that are these have to be kept anonymous. I wanted to know what your thoughts are on the Warhammer IP in terms of video games. As you know, Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40K have spawned tons of video games spanning the decades and touching almost every genre you can think of: action, CRPGs, tactical, grand strategy, first-person shooters, mobile gacha games, and plenty more. I'm curious what you think are any standout games from the IP to you, and if it ever made you interested in diving deeper into the lore or even the actual miniatures hobby itself. Personally, I got into the hobby thanks to Dawn of War, and specifically the Dark Crusade expansion, because I thought the Necrons looked awesome. Now I run an actual Warhammer store, which is both challenging and tons of fun. That's quite the That's quite the path. To give you some perspective on how the video games can affect our side of the business, when Space Marine 2 launched in September of 2024, my store did record sales from that September all the way through till about April 2025. It was an absolutely massive hit and got tons of people into the hobby. It had a huge effect on sales that the company had to actively plan around the sales drop for this past fiscal year. Okay, now I see why you wanted it to be anonymous. I don't. Space Hulk for the PC, which I guess it also came out on 3DO. That's a Warhammer game, isn't it? Yeah. I played a fair amount of that and thought it was cool. I played a lot of the Warhammer MMO that Mythic made and thought that it had some neat ideas. But I also knew some folks who were working on it and talked to them a lot about it and all of that stuff too. But I mean, look, obviously I'm a huge Warhammer guy. There's a cave named after me in that game, right? So they wouldn't go and do that if I wasn't like a big hammerhead. I think that's what we call them. If I wasn't a hamhead, then why would they? Anyway, I don't really have a huge interest in Warhammer. I thought that last Space Marine game was fine, but like I don't. There's some things about it that I don't like. I don't like spelling orc with a K. I think it's gross. I think it's filthy. I think it's yucky. I don't like it. I don't like all the ways that that some of those guys talk when they talk about their choppas and all that other stuff. Like all the Britishness of it, I find like as someone who like I like a lot of British content, a lot of British fiction, British comedy, especially. But something about the way that those fucking weird monsters are British in their own weird way, I find really off-putting in that property. I don't know why. But yeah, I don't, like, aren't those things made of lead? Like, I handled a lot of lead growing up. I don't want to get lead poisoning. So like, I don't want to get into miniatures. I don't want to paint anything small or big. It's not, I think it's cool that people do that. I don't want to do that. They don't use pewter anymore. It's okay. It's all plastic and resin. Okay. At least there's that. But yeah, I don't really have a ton of interest in the property or the figures. I don't know. Like, I just don't. It's not. I like StarCraft. You'd think that I would like the thing that they stole it from, but I don't. So it's yeah. I don't know. Like I look at the games as a. And have to like look at them as like, are these just good games on their own? Because the IP doesn't. The IP, I'm not going to say I find the IP like actively repellent or anything like that, but it is not something that I don't immediately go, oh, cool, a Warhammer game, especially over the last like, what is it, 5 years or like however long it feels like they've been really fucking licensing that shit out wide. It feels like that we've gotten a lot more and a wider variety of Warhammer games. So like, I think that's cool. Like if you like that stuff, then great. But again, like I looked at Space Marine 2 and was just like, this is neat. I don't care about the stuff that like people care about it for, but like as this game, it's fine. It's neat. It's a neat video game, but not neat enough for me to want to finish it or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't really. It's not something I am chasing. It's not something I am following. It's not something I'm like, oh, the new Warhammer games, guys. There was a new batch of Warhammer games announced, right? They just did a thing. If I remember right. That was on the front page of Steam, but I'm sure it's gone by now. But yeah, and I don't have a lot of, I just don't have a lot of interest in it. And I just don't think the figures, like when I see people with posting pictures of the figures they painted, I go, that's fucking cool. But I wouldn't want those. I don't think I would want to have Warhammer figurines. I don't, like, as far as like stuff I would put on a shelf to go like, check this shit out. It's just not, that's not the check this shit out vibe that I have. I want like a really good masterpiece sound wave, you know, like I want to do like a, you know, if I want, like, here's a really good Megatron, you know, like that's just kind of more my speed, man. I don't really have, I just don't. Mine's like, what, you know, what if you put a bunch of Neo Geo cartridges on a shelf and you could just look at the names of them and nod your head and go, yeah, that's some shit right there. That's more my speed. I don't know. But I can't, you know, I also, you know, I think part of it is like, I don't think I would be very good at painting, between being colorblind and not trusting myself to deal with really small things. Like I don't think I would be very good at that. Let's see here. Joey writes in from Pennsylvania. You know, if you want to know what the kids are into, Joey's got your back. I'm a high school teacher who leads a video game club at my school. Lately, I've been struggling to get kids to join due to a complete lack of interest among the student body. The only games that most kids are playing are Roblox or Clash of Clans. Even the more, quote, tuned-in kids tend to only play cheaper indie games on Steam or specific niche game genres. One of my students is obsessed with Victoria 3 of all things. Wow. When I mention to them that I've been playing games like Resident Evil 9 or Pragmata, I'm usually met with comments like Unk Slop or what even is that? I know that Pragmata is a newer, more niche game, but Resident Evil, when I try to talk to these kids about games like I'm excited about, they seem wholly uninterested. I don't even have particularly niche tastes. I took off work to play Black Ops 7, for God's sake. I'm only 28, but I feel so old and out of touch with what's popular for gaming when I talk to my students. And when I try to get them onto different games and genres, they just seem to not care. Are we cooked? Are we doomed to head into a gaming landscape full of only brain rot and gardens? Will this email ever end? Yeah, it's, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we were kind of... P.S. They are also forcing the teachers in my district to use AI in all of their lesson plans now. So this generation is cooked beyond video games. Hooray, 2026. Great. Yeah, I mean, this is an industry-wide problem to a certain extent of like, how do you get an incoming generation to care about these games? And like, if you look at look at this. The catch here, I think the common situation that you have here, and you can't really blame the kids for this, those games are fucking expensive. Like, what's a machine that's going to run Resident Evil 9 properly that's, you know, not a computer? Because, well, I don't know, a high school kid could have a computer. Could have a proper computer. So we're talking about teens, really. They've been trained that games are free. They've been trained that like they get Roblox on their phone, and they already have to have a phone because everyone has to have a phone. And so that's their exposure to video games. And so I think for a lot of these people, the idea of sitting down and playing a video game in front of a television or a fucking monitor is not what they're looking to get out of games. In a general sense, it's just not what they're looking for in a video game. story driven stuff. Like for them, games are more of a social thing. For them, games are more of a quick kind of like, hey, I'm just doing this real quick here, and then I'm on to the next thing or whatever. And so I think the way that those kids grew up and the way that those kids have learned to interact with games is dramatically different than the experience that any previous generation has had. And this is the thing that people have worried about for a lot of years in some ways around just the rise of mobile games in general, right? At the launch of the PlayStation 4, we were wondering if people wanted consoles anymore because how popular phones had become and everything. And the PlayStation 4 did great and, it was not a problem. But now, flash forward another 10, 12 years here, and suddenly it's like, well, these consoles are still selling, but the incoming generations don't want this shit the same way that they used to. They're not getting excited about this. They're not going to go spend $70 on a console game. Their parents are not, unless their parents still like games and still play games, which is, like a hit or miss, right? Some parents are going to still be out there doing that. But parents of high school kids at this point, that's, yeah, I think it's very easy to see a situation where like these kids that's what they think video games are, and all this other shit is like old. Like this is like for people who used to make games a long time ago, and this is why, okay, sure, this is how it happens or whatever. And yeah. So I can't blame them for having that perspective because I think that's just the way the world works now. I just don't know what you do about it. And I don't know if there's anything to be done about it. I like tastes change, right? If tastes change to such a degree that you could never have another Resident Evil game again, I would get it. Like that makes sense. In some ways, it's maybe weirder that we're still able to make and sell these games. I think the thing that's happening is you're just seeing like multiple different game industries bracketed out by age. A lot of people grew up and didn't stop playing games. And so that audience that was there for the PlayStation 2 is now still, and now they have a little bit more money to throw around, ideally. And so they're the ones that are able to afford this stuff. And obviously this stuff is only getting more expensive, so more and more of those folks are going to get priced out of this business. And so I don't really have a good answer to that. I think that's ultimately, I think, the crisis facing the traditional video game, the traditional console game, whatever it is, and why you see, like part of the Xbox thing of like, hey, we're making sure that cloud gaming is part of our thing and a prominent part of our thing. And they seem to be working on a controller dedicated to, hey, get this instead of a console and just play on your phone or play on your TV or whatever. Like that is them trying to find a way into this. Like it's a thing, like it can serve a couple of different purposes, right? Like, oh, can we do this for people who can't afford a new console? Or also, but can we do this for players who would never know that our games existed any other way? Dude, they put out a new James Bond game today. And it was like a fairly big deal. What the fuck is James Bond? If you're under 30, if you're under 40, like at some point, like what the fuck is James Bond? He's a British guy and he drives an Aston Martin. Do kids even care about cars anymore? Do kids even care about like from the fucking internal of it all the way out? You have all of these kind of shimmering fucking waves of who gives a shit if you're below a certain age, right? In a lot of ways, I'm fucking 50 and sometimes I feel like I am like James Bond. That's old man shit. And the majority of Bond movies have probably been made while I've been alive, right? So, but there's something about I don't know, James Bond is for fucking old men. James Bond is for, like, you want to sit around and fucking, I don't know, you're one of those bourbon weirdos. You're like, I'm going to sip some brown liquor and I'm going to, James Bond is going to. What the fuck does a kid care about fucking James fucking spy shit? Like, you know what I mean? That's nothing against the game itself, but just conceptually, what does that do for anyone under the age of fucking 25? What does that do for anyone 18 to 24 or whatever, right? I you know, like demographically speaking, who gives a shit about James Bond? When was the last James Bond movie? It was like a few years ago now, but it's not like, I feel like those movies, I don't know, some of those movies are pretty fucking good. But like, dude, who's identifying with that character or that concept and like, and going, I got to get the new James Bond game. Ballerina Toshinden says, idea, James Bond, but he's a brain rot. Okay, all right. James Zanini Gandalf Bondini. Yeah. Zatoichi says the last Bond movie made $775 million. It's not exactly a dead franchise. $775 million, that's a lot of money. Again, I don't mean to say that these things have zero appeal, right? But when you bracket it out by age, you know, how much of that money came from who's getting into James Bond in this day and age? Like GoldenEye, which is like the video game, disgustingly enough, crazily enough, you know, like the game GoldenEye was one of the best inroads to James Bond for like a generation of kids. You know? It was great that like GoldenEye the movie was actually pretty good after, I feel like there was, you know, we get that Living Daylights, that weird Timothy Dalton era, you get that kind of weird sort of, you know, stuff in the middle there, and then, you know, we come out of that Pierce Brosnan, we get into that Pierce Brosnan stuff, and like that stuff's all right, right? But like that's the last like cultural touchstone for like, I feel like anyone of my generation on down that was like, oh, James Bond is cool and matters. That it's GoldenEye, the video game. It's not even the fucking movie, you know? No Free Will says Casino Royale did okay culturally. Did it? Yeah, I guess that's a pretty decent movie. The thing I always say, and it, because it is stone cold true, the only thing that gets me thinking about GoldenEye the movie is Botchamania. That's the cultural touchstone for me. Alma asks, do your kids like Batman? They don't know. I don't think they know who Batman is. I don't know. Like that Lego Batman game came out, and I was like, I wonder if this would be like a fun thing for them to play or whatever. I think I'm at a point here where I'm going to have to start getting two controllers and letting them play together because there's too much fighting over who is playing what. But also I think there's like some fun multiplayer stuff that they would be potentially into. But I don't know if Batman, that Lego Batman game might be too much for them. It's weird to have a game. It's weird to have a Lego game that opens with your parents getting murdered. I mean, they don't really dwell on it too much. It's sort of a thing where, like, if you didn't know what was happening there, like, it would you'd be like, huh? Weird. But, like, they do, like, the Lego jokey thing as the parents are getting killed. And you're like, who are these games for? This is, like, a really fucked up kind of, it's just a weird, that game is interesting. I wish it was less Lego and more Arkham. That's kind of, you know, after playing some of it last week. I guess I should have talked about that at the top of the show, huh? Oh well. But like, yeah, I don't know. I don't like at some point you're making Lego Batman. At some point, those story beats are like worth. Like if you're above a certain age, it's very funny to joke about that stuff and depict those moments in that way. But at some point you go like, who are these games for? Like what? Like it feels a little fucked up. But I guess for a kid, I think that scene would mostly just be confusing because they don't necessarily dwell on like, oh, the parents just got smoked. It's just like they're there in one scene and then there's just a bunch of fucking Lego blocks in the next one. And the young Bruce Wayne is sad, and then he goes off to do the tutorial level, and he's grown up, and you're like, whatever, okay. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think my kids really have seen. I mean, my son is kind of into Spider-Man, though. I think we sort of incepted that in him by buying him a Spider-Man backpack, and then there was that good Spider-Man show, the cartoon, the recent one, and then they did an Iron Man spinoff, which is not nearly as good. Spidey and His Amazing Friends, whatever it is. And he was into that for a little bit, but is extremely not anymore. Now he only watches Rubble and Crew. Yeah, anyway, the Lego Batman games is sort of a weird one. But yeah, I think that a lot, like what the fuck are kids supposed to do? Like I feel like there was a time when just every video game coming out was something you could get like excited about because you just liked video games. And now, video games are just like a thing, like everything else. It's good that happened because it means that video games became mainstream in the way that they certainly were not in the mid 80s. Even at the height of Pac-Man fever or the height of the NES, like it was still something that was very much thought of as for kids and was maybe a fad, and parents didn't fucking understand it and they weren't into it. And that was that, man. It was something that was very much socially looked down upon. I did not have friends who played video games. I like very, very, very small number. Even at the height of, Super Mario Brothers and all of this other stuff, like the kids at my school did not fucking have Nintendo. I did. And maybe like one or two other kids did, but they were not interested. And video games are just a part of modern culture anymore. They're part of a huge multimedia rollouts include video games and include all this other stuff. And it's just another medium, for better or for worse, right? And I don't know. We kind of lost something along the way there, but it was worth it. It was worth it in some ways because now the video game industry is so much bigger, even with all the shit that's been happening these last few years. Like it is still just a larger, bigger deal. But yeah, I don't know, man. It feels like it feels like like this email. There are generations that are just not going to be into it. And I wonder if we're going to go through that and how the video game industry will continue to respond to that, because it started manifesting as, boy, everyone just plays Minecraft. Boy, everyone just plays Fortnite. Now it's like Fortnite doesn't seem like it's in the same boat. Obviously, Epic just laid a bunch of people off and said that the game is, the game has dropped off, and the game has been dropping off seemingly kind of substantially, and you could say maybe some of that is because it wasn't on the App Store or whatever. Which is funny because it feels like that they picked their fight with Apple at the exact wrong time, because getting off the App Store and going off of all that stuff was around the time that it feels like Roblox went from like being a big deal to being extremely fucking entrenched. And why would you go back to Fortnite? So anyway, but like, like these games felt like forever games, but like, I guess the thing is if Fortnite's not doing well, where's that audience going? And I bet it's nowhere. I bet it is, they played a bunch of Fortnite for a while and now they're not playing anything. That's my assumption. I don't think there's a migration path. You used to think like, can we get kids to graduate from Minecraft? At first, it was the conversation was about Minecraft, and then as Fortnite and Roblox blew up as well, it became like, can we get, as kids get older, they're not going to want to play this stupid bullshit. They're going to want to play Resident Evil 9, but like, I don't think so. we'll see. Ash in the UK writes in with a logistical question about reviewing video games. A line in your latest Patreon post where you mentioned having had to finish games for work had me thinking, what games over the years do you think your enjoyment or opinion of were most impacted by having to finish them for work? You recently talked about having to power through Ocarina over a weekend, but it being a game you still highly regard. Are there inverse examples? Are there games you think you'd have a more or less favorable view on in your experience had it been more relaxed? Ash, I don't think so. So, part of the reason why I was a fucking real good company man video game reviewer for all those years is because that's just how I fucking played video games. And so, like, if it was a game that I wanted to play, I would be blazing through it either way. And so, no, I don't like that. That is just kind of how I play games. It's largely still kind of how I would like to play games. It's just I have a lot of other stuff going on. And so it gets harder to do that. The thing in that Patreon post is what I'm talking about in there is I'm talking about, I guess you could talk about both Saros and Mixtape. Those are both two games that, like, I walked away from. And it felt great. It felt great to be able to say, I don't like I don't think this game is good enough for me to spend any more time with it, and I'm done. With Mixtape, that was incredibly fast. With Saros, I played, a good 8-9 hours of Saros. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in that game that I just like, but there's also just enough about it that I'm like, I don't like any of the characters. Like, none of the storyline stuff is doing anything for me at all, and the gameplay is getting very kind of tiresome. And so it felt good to get to a point where I had played quite a lot of that and then was like, yeah, cool. I'm good. Maybe I'll play some more of this, maybe I won't. But I'm not going to, like, break my neck trying to finish this game just so I can write a fucking thing about it. And it felt very freeing, again, as someone who has had to power through a lot of bad games over the years. It is very freeing to be able to say, like, I just don't need to do this. And I'm going to write about what I'm going to write about, and I will say, hey, I didn't finish this game. Maybe the end of it's amazing and it's a fucking 5 out of 5, like maybe it's fucking incredible. Like, just take that into consideration when you're reading what I have to say about it. I think there's two things to take away from that. One, I didn't like it enough to keep playing it, which says something about a game. And two, hey, maybe the end part of that game is incredible and ties it all together in a way that, like, oh, now I care about the story and the characters and all this other stuff. It's certainly possible. But conveying that out front and saying, here's the situation, I think is, and not like putting a score on it, obviously, and not saying this is a review, like saying what it is. Hey, I played a bunch of this game. Let's talk about it. Mixtape, as maybe 15 minutes. I don't know. And it was just something about the smarminess of the character and like being like preached to about the value of mixtapes and all this other stuff and being like, yeah, no, I know what a fucking mixtape is. Thanks. Combined with, but really it was the stop motion animation that made me fucking immediately run away from that game. Like, if it had just been like, oh, well, I think that the way, like, if I wanted this type of preachy music nerd shit, I would just go watch High Fidelity again, or or whatever. Like, if I wanted this kind of teen experience, there's like a billion John Hughes movies. Like, there's like better ways to get that thing that are not interactive per se, but they don't need to be. Yeah, I don't know. I found a lot of the writing in the early part of that game to be immediately off-putting, but I probably would have still powered through it if the game ran at a normal looking frame rate, because that game has you doing skateboarding at the very beginning of the game and like literally has the Tony Hawk trick system in it. And you're like, oh, this is okay. This is kind of cool, except it fucking looks and feels like fucking shit because of the fucking frame rate stuff. And then when they go into cutscenes, she'll like jump off the skateboard and start moving at a full frame rate. And you're like, fucking fuck, come on. Just give me that. Let me fucking turn it on. This game looks like fucking dog shit otherwise and feels awful in the hand. And then she jumps right back on the skateboard and the frame rate goes poof. And that's their artsy thing. And, you know, hey, congratulations. You saw the Spider-Man movie that did that. I think games that are doing that are making a huge mistake, because I think you can do that in a non-interactive, you can do that in a movie all day long, and that's your artistic choice, and it looks like that. I think the minute you put it into something that people have to control, I think it fucking feels terrible in a way that I was simply not going to play any more of that game. And it felt good to go, yeah, I'm fucking good with this. Fuck this. Like, I don't like it's I already find it kind of annoying, and I find this part of it absolutely miserable. I'm really curious, that Wu-Tang game that is that they announced a while ago that is still not out. Like South of Midnight and Mixtape are not trying to always do like major combat, like frame perfect, like, you know, there's a lot of stuff in those games that are, you know, they're very narrative focused, and you can kind of get away with it. But Wu-Tang is like a fucking, like, if you look at it, it's like a character action game, and they're trying to do this shit-ass frame rate thing in conjunction with a character action game. And that seems like the exact wrong thing to do. The exact wrong thing to do. So I'm really curious to see how that thing ends up, because Jesus, that seems like a terrible fucking idea. But yeah, I ultimately I think that like that's the influence of Into the Spider-Verse or whatever. There's two of them, right? Or there's one still coming out. I think that for as much as that was a striking, unique look that is really cool to see, as like a kind of a spectacle, I think trying to put that into the interactive space is one of the dumbest things you can do. And so that's what I thought about Mixtape. But again, like after 15 minutes of it, I was like, I can't fucking stand this. Like, why am I doing? I'm good. I don't need to do this. I got other games I can be playing. I don't need to do this. And so it's more about that. It's more just about like, hey, there's a certain amount of suffering or whatever. There's a certain amount of bad game I'm willing to put up with, and still play through for like, hey, I'm going to write a review of this. Or like, there's a certain amount of like hours I'll put into a thing, and the freeing thing about not being kind of on that clock or on that reviewer timetable is not about, oh, I can play these games at a more relaxed pace, because that's just how I like to play games anyway. If I'm playing a game I like, I'm devouring it. I'm like, this is all I'm doing. This is all I'm thinking about. I'm trying to fucking get, like, that's how I played games before I started reviewing games. It's what made me an effective reviewer, is because I could finish those games quickly and move on to the next assignment. There were a lot of games that needed to be reviewed, and I was there to do them. And so that's just how I always played them. And so it's not that I want to play them at a more leisurely pace. Sometimes that can be nice, but it is more that like now I have the ultimate freedom of like, no one's going to come to me and give me shit if I just walk away from this and don't play any more of it. And that's nice. So that's more what I was getting at on that post on Patreon. I think a lot of the talk about Mixtape is like mildly interesting, but I think people got a weird axe to grind with it that it probably doesn't deserve either way. I think it's the sort of thing where like I like the writing as I encountered it, I was like, I don't want to see this. I'm not interested in this. This is a kind of fucking weird nostalgia thing that I'm looking at and going like, yeah, I don't, yeah, sure. Like this is not the Devo song I would have gotten, but I guess, hey, just the good songs cost money, right? So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It kind of became the grifter game of the day. I don't know. They stopped like fucking pocket watching marathon player numbers for a couple of days to shit on mixtape for whatever dumb fucking reason. I don't think mixtape's good, but not for those fucking insane made up reasons. Anyway, Domingo asks, how would you fix Blitzball? Rip it out. Remove it completely and never do it again. It's easy. Just take it out entirely. It's simple stuff. Given your extensive knowledge on the ways Blitzball sucks, I was wondering what your suggestions would be to make it better or to perhaps actually make it great. I mean, I would remove it from the game. I would make it a cutscene. Yeah, it would be a cutscene that you watch for 15 seconds of Blitzball highlights and you go, huh? And then you move on to the next scene in the game. Easy. You would never play Blitzball. You should never play Blitzball. If you had to play Blitzball, I would say make it a real video game, make it real time. Instead of the fucking weird math problem that it is, I would turn it into actual fucking underwater soccer. I don't think that would be good either, but it would be better than fucking... It'd be better than the fucking math. That's for sure. Gordon in Chicago writes in with some questions about the logistics of capturing footage for a game review. Ugh. When using video as a medium to present a game review, I've often wondered about the logistics of capturing, selecting, and editing the footage for the final posted version of a review. I thought maybe you could shed some light on how you managed this when you had a game that would theoretically have a lot of footage like an RPG. I'd imagine trying to parse through hours of The Witcher 3 or Elden Ring for a clip would be daunting. As a reviewer or as a manager of a team of reviewers, how would you capture all the footage and parse it down in a presentable way? Yeah, this was one of my least favorite parts of the process that only became more important as time went on. When I am reviewing a game, I am trying to think about the game review. I am trying to think about the game and nothing else. And so the process of going, ooh, I should probably capture this, and remembering to go turn on what was at the time a 8mm, like a mini DV tape recorder, and hitting record on a mini DV player that was wired in all the way, to then record that footage and then knowing when to stop it. The fucking worst. And so it became because I didn't want to fucking taint the review with my hatred, like I didn't want to make the process fucking suck in a way that was gonna fucking make the process worse. I would go and review the game. I would play through the entire game and not think about any of that shit because I hate that shit. And then I would go back and record some footage after the fact. You would try, if a game had multiple saves, you would try to have a couple of saves throughout the game that you could return to for having a varied look at the footage. But sometimes they didn't. And sometimes you would have a save that was just at the very end of the game, and you would only be able to then start a new game and get footage from the beginning of the game. And so sometimes I would just do that. And so sometimes for more important games or games where I wanted to capture and show something specific, I would say, hey, there's a boss, because at this point you're handing the tape off to an editor at GameSpot because they had enough people for that back then. For a while they were hiring what they called predators, producer editor. I was like, that's the worst thing to call why are we calling people that? Don't do that. Do not do that. Don't do that. But sometimes, you're just handing a tape off to someone and then they're putting I'm writing a script and I am reading the script in front of a camera, and then they are taking the footage of me reading the thing and the footage of the game, and they're cutting between the two of them. And trying to make that look good. And they did a good job. I did not, I could have, were there ways I could have made it easier on that end of things for those people? Maybe. But I really didn't like, it was my least favorite part of the review process for sure, was recording the footage. And so we tried to think about different ways to do it, where it was like, okay, just record the entire game. I'm going to give you a bunch of tapes and you're going to hook this thing up and just record the entire thing. But then you've got 20 hours to, 40 hours, however long the game is, of footage to fucking crawl through. And I'm not going to go through that because I am already on to the next game in a lot of situations. I'm like, okay, cool. That's done. All right. I need to start on this thing now. And so going through all that footage and putting time codes on, this is a boss fight here. Like that's, yeah. That stuff was not, I don't know. I think that's a tricky process to do right. Stuff like shadow play and some of these things that'll dump the last 60 seconds to disk. I think that stuff's kind of interesting. Specifically for that reason, because you can go, oh, some cool shit happened. It'd be nice to show that in a review. And so I think if I was trying to make actually good video reviews today, I would probably turn on stuff like that, where possible, flashback recording or whatever, and try to record stuff directly. But yeah, I hated that. I hated it. Let's see here. What else we got? Shiny from Indianapolis wrote in 24 minutes ago and said, this is my first email, but hearing the kids not liking video games is confusing because I've had the exact opposite experience. My nephew's in business school, played high school sports, and has been wanting a PS5 for a while. He played Fortnite with his friends, and they moved on to other games. I asked if his friends played games a lot, and he said he was the only one stuck on Xbox, but a lot of his friends had a PS5, and he wanted to join them. Even my niece in college mentioned wanting a Switch to play games on the bus. I get that emailers are asking kids, but it might be peer pressure if they're asking groups or maybe a regional thing. Like I said, it's only personal experience, but it's some hope. Yeah, I mean, the Switch is very popular, and obviously it is a very popular way to play Fortnite. I got a kid on my Switch friends list that that he was a friend of the family. They moved away. I don't know. They're somewhere. Haven't seen them in a bit, but I was looking through my Switch friends list and going, oh, who is this? And there was someone on there that had like 2,000 hours of Fortnite on the Switch. I was like, holy shit! I was like, oh, it's that guy. It's that guy. But there have been interesting spots of like video games reaching people that they don't normally reach, and a lot of that I think happened through the pandemic. Like the weird success, I guess it's not that weird, but the overwhelming success of Animal Crossing during the pandemic I think was really fucking interesting. Because there was a lot of people who didn't play game or hadn't played games in a very long time, that they just kind of word of mouth traveled in such a way that like a bunch of people wanted to get a Switch and play it and do all this stuff. And I think, you have those kind of interesting breakout moments as well. But yeah, I don't know. Those kids exist. The ones that want to play proper video games on proper video game machines. And we'll see how it goes. Rad Jago in the chat says, so much of my Xbox friends list is now their kids playing on their accounts. Yeah. I have definitely messaged someone and then heard back via text like, oh, that's my kid playing. Like, oh yeah. Okay. I will stop sending you curse-filled messages about your trials times then. Graham from Maryland writes in, what is the dividing line between a video game t-shirt that looks cool versus one that is incredibly embarrassing? Are they all embarrassing? I personally don't think this, but it comes close. I think that if a shirt has an understated design for a cool, generally older game, that it's generally acceptable. Basically, if someone can look at the design and not immediately recognize it as nerd bullshit. But also, I have a very shitty quality Virtua Fighter 2 promo shirt that I found in Tokyo, and frankly, it looks baller as hell. Green Triforce shirt is a no-go for me, though. What do you think? Yeah, man. There is that sort of like line where you're like, it would be cool if it had, it'd be cool if it was just a cool design that if you knew what it was, you're like, oh yeah, okay, that's from a video game. But if not, it kind of just still looks like a cool shirt. It's like the wrestling, wrestling t-shirts, I think, have the same problem, where I think even a wider percentage of wrestling t-shirts are fucking terrible. Like just the worst, most embarrassing shit. But I don't know, like people, a lot of people dress ironically again, like that. I feel like that's on the rise again. So who cares? Just wear it with confidence, and anything will work, right? But yeah, I don't know. Like, what's the? I think that it's got to be that kind of like that design that works no matter what. But at some point, you're still just wearing a t-shirt with some fucking design on it, which I feel like at that point, why not just fucking lean all the way in? Like if you're not going to be quarter zip fucking dipshit dude or whatever, if you're gonna continue to wear t-shirts, I feel like just go for it and just live, baby. I don't know. Easier said than done, I know. Michael writes in from New York and asks, who is the Xbox Helix really for? Well, I'm excited about the possibility that the Helix and Steam Machine are poised to make PC gaming more accessible for a mainstream audience. I also recognize that this capability set will not speak to the same audience that bought 100 million PS5s or Nintendo Switches. Do you think that there's that much of an audience that has been eager to get into PC gaming, but is intimidated by the complexity of it, that either box would see those mass market successes versus a portable PlayStation 6, especially with the era of console subsidies seemingly dead? I'm struggling to see how this charts back to a path of console success for Xbox here. So what am I missing? I mean, it's a fair point, because I do think that, like, at the end of the day, when it comes time for Xbox to market whatever the next Xbox is, they're not going to spend a ton of time on also, like, if this isn't in fact the case, right? It's a big if still, because we don't know, but they're not going to spend a ton of time going, by the way, it's also a PC and you can do anything you want on it. Like, that's something that'll be like an interesting selling point to a subsection of people. The things that get people to buy consoles are the same things that they always were. It's ease of use, it's accessibility, it's price, and a certain amount of like the social stuff around all of that, right? I think some of that is broken, right? Like the price conversation is completely fucked. But what they're going to go for is like, hey, we think this is the most powerful console around, right? I mean, they're still going to play that game. And I think Sony will try to do the same thing. They will try to go like, look at how round these tires are. You can look at the reflections in these puddles, how fucking insane they look. Isn't this sick as hell? Here's Venom, or here's, like whatever. Here's Nathan Drake. He's back. And so I think both PlayStation and Xbox, I think, have like a hard time, because the pricing will be so out of control. The thing about the PC stuff or whatever, and you say Steam Machine as well, like what you're marketing is, hey, we made this as easy as a console. With a Steam machine, that's the value, right? With a Steam Deck, that's the ideal scenario. Is like, hey, you can play all these games. There are so many fucking games on Steam. But again, that's not something that they're even trying to market to a mass audience. That's something that they sell on Steam. You got to know about it. You have to, if you don't already know about all this shit because you're already playing PC games, you need to see one and go, oh, cool. I think it would be cool to have one of those. And then you buy one and then you go, oh, wait, what do you mean I can't play a game X, Y, or Z on it because of anti-cheat, because of this, because of that? And you have to understand or learn what it is you really bought. Because it is still not quite ready for prime time. It's still not quite ready for the mainstream. Xbox, I think, bridges that gap a different way, and they will continue to sell things that they call Xbox games. And it's not just going to be, here's a PC, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the messaging around it will be really muddy, and a lot of the ideal consumers for those things will be kind of strange, but I don't know. I think there's such an uphill battle with all of this around, that's still around price and availability. And until that stuff gets solved, until you can figure out, like, here's how to maybe play this sort of stuff. On a quote unquote console or whatever. Yeah. Brad Jacob in the chat says, yeah, GTA 6 won't be playable on every Xbox except maybe via cloud. I think that would betray their promise. I think that that GTA 6, I think you would very much need to be able to play the Xbox Series X version of GTA 6 on whatever a Helix is through backwards compatibility. Like, I think that the promise of that Xbox has made with their audience for generations now is exactly that. So I think you're wrong there, but we'll see. Right? I mean, but the idea here is that there's going to be something about the Xbox mode on whatever this hardware is that will let you play those games. And not just have to play PC versions of those games, because those don't exist in every single case. And I feel like that is something that is inherent to the Xbox experience. I would actually say the same thing about PlayStation at this point as well. That that would be a major break in trust for those types of systems and those types of programs, the backwards compatibility stuff. I also don't think that Xbox would allow themselves to be put in a position where they're shipping a console that doesn't run GTA. And maybe they end up solving that because maybe the PC version of GTA just is magically available by then, and they can just kind of do something that way to solve it. But whatever they're making needs to be able to run Series X games. Period. I feel like that's table stakes type stuff at this point, considering where the last couple of generations have gone with it and how it's been built. So I would actually be shocked if they allowed a new Xbox to ship that could not run that game, or all Xbox Series X games within some amount of reason. There's a handful of games that don't play for one reason or another, right? Some of it's like, oh well, hey, the Xbox One Connect games don't work anymore. Like, obviously, right? Or like in some cases, what was it? Like Fortnite didn't run, you couldn't play the PlayStation 4 version of Fortnite on a PlayStation 5. It was technically not backwards compatible, but also they had a PS5 version of Fortnite ready, and so you just got that instead. And yeah, so I don't think that'll be the case. But yeah, I think like Michael's question is valid. I do think that there is something to be said for making a case for, this is true, I think, across the board. They will need to make a case. Why do you want this console? What is the selling point of a PlayStation 6? What is the selling point of an Xbox Helix? Just in a general consumer sort of sense, right? I feel like we've really hit a point of diminishing returns on graphical fidelity for a mainstream audience. I feel like a lot of them, I could be wrong, but I suspect we've hit a situation where you could show someone who doesn't play a lot of video games a PlayStation 5 game and tell them it was a PlayStation 6 game, and they would go, cool, or vice versa. You know? If we look to the PC for, how far the fidelity stuff goes and higher resolutions and higher frame rates and everything else, like there's nothing happening on PC that is like a dramatic game-changing sort of thing that is going to make games look so much better on a PlayStation 6 or whatever. That even I feel like if we get another generation of NVIDIA cards that play video games instead of fucking run shitty chatbots, it's hard to imagine a world where that's like some dramatic shift. When you look at some of the bullshit they tried to do with the fucking putting makeup on all the fucking models and shit, the DLSS 5.5 or whatever the fuck it was, like that shit is fucking horse shit, dude. And it doesn't, like, even that stuff at its best is not looking so much better or whatever than the current video games. You go, oh, this is a generational shift. This is a huge deal. I think we're past the point of seeing a trailer for a video game or a screenshot and saying, this is some full on next level shit. Oh my God. Like the Witcher stuff that they've shown, the Witcher 4 stuff, like, looks really good. And you look at it and go like, damn, dude. But it's like, you say damn, dude, because you've played a lot of video games and you kind of know what you're looking at, and you know to look around look at the edges and look at this and look at that. You go like, huh, okay. But even that is not like the most gigantic leap forward. Like, again, if you showed that to someone who hadn't played video games obsessively for years, I don't think that they would understand the like what they're actually looking at. I don't think they would understand like, oh, this is super impressive, and oh my God, video games have changed. Like, it's not, they would never have that reaction to it. Which, yeah, the Witcher stuff was not some PS6 footage or anything like that. But I'm saying that was a very good looking trailer that at the time you were like, oh my God, this looks fucking really cool. This looks like some next level type shit. So yeah, I don't know. Like, the PlayStation 5's selling point was not that different from the Xbox's selling point, but the PS5, they tried to sell the speed of the hard drive. One of their big marketing points for PS5 launch was, look at how fast this shit loads. And you can go from here to here and it just loads right up, and you can hit this button on the main menu of the PS5 and suddenly here's Spider-Man swinging around. And, some games took interesting advantage of those features, and most games didn't. And so it hasn't really been made good on. So maybe we just see more of that next time around as well. That'd be kind of nice. But I don't really know. Like, what do you... At some point, like, you could see them very easily, like, leaning on the very buzzwordy AI shit. Like, if you got to impress a mainstream audience who is not as dialed in as the average player, the average consumer of video games, if you showed them, and maybe I don't know, like, a public sentiment about AI is obviously like mixed, let's say. I would think that, and maybe this is out of date now because maybe the ship has sailed, but I think at one point, if you had told me they were going to show the next Xbox by showing you, here's the new Elder Scrolls, and now all these NPCs fucking talk to you because they're powered by the cloud, by the magic of fucking artificial intelligence. Now all of these dipshits want to fucking talk your ear off. I would very much believe it. 1000%. Now I think that, people have realized that that's not a good way to show a game, and that that's not necessarily a fucking interesting thing to do in a game, because you don't want to fucking talk to all those fucking people. It's like, oh, great, everyone has generic quests for me? That fucking rules. It's like Radiant fucking -5. That's great. And so I think everyone is smart enough to know that would not go super well. But if you'd asked me a couple of years ago how would they show it and what could they try to show, I would say, they'll probably just fucking try to pull some shit like that out of their ass. And it's not going to be good, but they'll try to fucking say, look at this. You're having a real conversation. Milo is real. That's how you market the next Xbox. Milo is real. Grok is Bing. Milo is real. This is the fucking future that we have wanted. Milo in all caps. All caps when you fucking spell Milo's name. But yeah, I don't, and maybe, I'm not the most technically minded fucking dude in the world. And so maybe there's some really obvious shit right around the corner technology wise that you would be able to look at a game and go, wow, okay, we couldn't do that last time around. But I have my doubts, man. I have my fucking doubts. For sure. And that's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. We will be back next week with another episode of the podcast. Of course, you can also go to jeff.zone. Learn more about the Patreon. Read some of that stuff that we were talking about in those emails there. And so on and so forth. I'll be back Wednesday. We'll do some other stuff. And Friday, we'll rank another batch of 8-bit Nintendo games. Somehow, there are still more left. Can you believe it? It's ridiculous.